Okay, I'm going to call to order the regular city council meeting of Rochester of July 13th, 2020. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes, here.
Bavacqua,
Here.
Albrecht,
Here.
Keithley,
Here.
Peterson,
Here.
Sage,
Here.
Salvia.
Here.
Thank you. We all rise to say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody, and welcome, everyone. Just a quick housekeeping note before we get started. I know that some council members, me included, unfortunately, have had technical problems. So the new thing is if you have a technical problem and you can't get back in, first let Leanne O'Connor know if there's a vote coming up so that we can hold that, and then you need to call in on the numbers that were given in the email that Jane sent and things like that. So hopefully that solves the problem. There's always some issue that was unforeseen and it was too bad, but so hopefully if people have technical problems, that will solve that. So if there is, let Leanne O'Connor know, and we will hold off until you can call in. Councilmember Peterson, do you have a comment on that?
I do, Your Mayor. Thank you very much. Well, the problem with that is unless the council person actually says that they are leaving the meeting, everyone should wait until that person is back on. So unfortunately, I did not state at the last meeting that I was leaving, and I was not waited, so I could actually place my vote.
Right.
So I appreciate the changes taking place. However, unless somebody actually states that, we need to wait for them.
Agreed. And as I told Councilmember Peterson, the intent was not to obviously not have her vote. So hopefully this new procedure will allow everybody to participate, and we all have to understand that there's technical issues now. And again, I keep saying is I've had that problem myself. So hopefully we'll go forward with that. So next is the public comment schedule, non-schedule. We have a legislative update from Senator McMorrow. Senator, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Hope everybody is doing well and glad we finally broke the heat wave. I know there were some power outages up in the Rochester Hills area with our latest storm. We've had some horrendous ones down here in Royal Oak. I think we're on our 7th outage this month. So I'm currently working on drafting a letter to DTE just to kind of address that up front, demanding some infrastructure improvements as well as increased transparency and a publicly available tree trimming calendar that residents can see. We had a lot of residents reach out to us over the past week, especially with the heat wave, to say that the outages caused them to lose hundreds or thousands of dollars worth of food and medication and things that needed to be refrigerated. So just wanted to lead with that because I know that that's something that impacted quite a number of people.
Senator, excuse me.
Oh, sure.
I appreciate that, and good luck with that because we've been trying it up here for years and years. So God bless you.
Yeah, it's, we've been talking about this in meetings recently, and I think obviously it's an uphill battle with an investor-owned utility who's the only player in the region. I serve on the Energy and Technology Committee, and one of the things that has become a broadly bipartisan issue recently as it relates to that is expanding the cap on residential solar, which, while wouldn't necessarily be something that many residents would take advantage of, would provide some more competition in the market and potentially give us more of a bargaining chip to really push back on DTE and say, we've got to have improvements. We need increased reliability. And we can't justify. Michigan actually currently has the nation's strictest solar cap at 1% of total energy usage. So there are some bills, like I said, bipartisan pending right now in that committee. So that's something that I'm continuing to push to say we've got to have options, we've got to have competition, and we need to see improvements, especially as you know, it feels like there's a cloud in the sky and power goes out for no reason. So hit that right off the bat. The other big thing is the enhanced mask requirement. Executive order went into effect today for businesses. It went into effect for residents last week, which now requires that masks be worn in public spaces, any publicly accessible businesses. And, you know, I just cannot stress enough, you know, my message is always encouraging people to lead by example. Michigan is still in a good place with our containment of COVID-19. I'm sure you saw the news out of California, which has gone back on their reopening just today, closing down all indoor service in all restaurants and bars and gyms and movie theaters and continuing to close back down. Ingham County just released an order today that anybody coming back to the state from states like Alabama, Texas, Florida, Arizona, be required to quarantine for 14 days once they return to Michigan. So we are still in a very good place. Our hospitalization rate is in a good place right now, but that all depends on all of us. You know, I am getting no shortage of phone calls from parents who desperately need their kids back in school in the fall, and teachers who want to go back. Dr. Shaner has been an incredible partner for the Return to Learn plan, putting details in place. And I know Rochester Schools has been providing regular updates on how those plans are coming together. So I know some people push back on additional mandates, but this is something that is very, very easy for all of us to do that allows us to control our own future as we head towards the fall. I think it would be absolutely devastating for us to have to go back to where we were in March and April. So appreciate everybody's partnership. We have been really leading on that. Anytime I'm out in public, I have a pretty cool collection of masks now. So that is something that is in effect. A couple of other things that I wanted to share an update on. Michigan's new auto insurance law went into effect on July 1st, which now allows for the first time people to choose their coverage options on their PIP line of coverage. So just for some clarity for everybody, it's not on the entirety of your bill. It's just on the PIP line of coverage. You can choose the level of coverage that you can retain. But the thing I stress more than anything else is call an insurance agent and understand your healthcare coverage, because we are starting to hear from some constituents who are seeing a mixed bag. Some are seeing some savings, some are not. Some are actually seeing their rates increase. And we heard from one constituent who said that their insurance agent actually raised their homeowner's insurance and told them it was because of the new auto insurance law, which is plainly illegal. You cannot do that. So as people are starting to see issues, I serve on the Insurance and Banking Commission, and I'm also working in a task force to assess some of the issues in the new rollout and see if there are any legislative improvements that we need to make sure that the law goes into effect as intended. But there is a new website available at michigan.gov/auto insurance for people to better understand what's in the law, what it requires. The potential savings are required based on the statewide average. So there are people in Southeast Michigan who will not see a savings because it would not be based on their individual bill. It's a statewide average. So more information, but I would just say if you can send out to residents, if they have any concerns or they're seeing issues in the rollout, please send them to us, because we want to keep an eye on how that implementation is going and what fixes we need to make sure that is not being taken advantage of in a negative way. Important update on any residents whose license, state ID, or vehicle registration expired between February 1st and June 30th. The renewal date for all of those has been extended to September 30th. So now that Secretary of State's offices are opened, understandably, there is a backlog of people trying to get in and get appointments. Just want to put that out there, make sure everybody knows they have some time, which is good, but encourage people to get online, try to get an appointment. That is the best way. I've been in and out in 5 minutes when I've been able to get an appointment. It was actually a pretty smooth experience. And as of this year, there are now a limited number of appointments at each branch office that are reserved for same day. So if you're looking online, you can't find an appointment for the next month or two, just check in fairly regularly, and there will likely be some spots open. There are also now 122 self-service kiosks throughout the state at places like Kroger and Meijer. So go check out the Secretary of State's websites. Many of the renewals can be done either online at a kiosk, and you may not even need to go into a branch. For all of you in local government, some good news on funding. The legislature passed a bipartisan $880 million COVID relief funding package that the governor signed into law, which pulls down funding from the $3.2 billion that we received in federal CARES Act funding. And that includes, among other things, a $2 an hour pay increase for direct care workers, $125 million to assist in the cost of childcare for people who are going back to work, an additional $200 million for local governments. I know that's very important, especially because the federal CARES Act funding in the first round did not come down to local municipalities who had populations under 500,000 people, which is every city I represent. So nobody got any of that funding. There's also $100 million in small business grants, which is now available for business owners to apply through the MEDC website. So if you go on the MEDC, you can see what grant programs are available and how to apply for those. There's $60 million in rental assistance and mortgage diversion. So this is really important. The moratorium for evictions expires on July 15th. So that was something that the governor had put in place because of COVID-19. What we don't want to have happen is for people who may still be behind on bills, who are not back to work yet, to come up against this deadline and suddenly be out of a place to live. So there is now $60 million available for landlords through the state to be able to work with tenants on a payment plan or to delay their billing a bit more, because we want to make sure that that's available, because we heard from plenty of landlords as well that they were having issues where they've got bills to pay, they've got to manage their properties. So hopefully this draws out the timeline of making sure people can get back to work and start to get caught up on bills, but there is funding available for landlords. So we encourage people to take advantage of that. And this is something that I pushed really hard for, and I'm glad made it in, is there's $14 million for food banks and domestic violence shelters. We heard some really devastating stories of people, particularly during the shutdown, who were stuck in some very, very dangerous situations at home. So we want to make sure that domestic violence shelters in the area are fully funded, that people know that they have a safe place to go and receive those services. And then there is, importantly, an additional $29 million in funding for staff for the unemployment insurance agency, along with laptops, cell phones, so that they can start to fill out that backlog. To date, about 95% of all unemployment claims have been fulfilled. People are getting payments. Michigan, believe it or not, is leading the country in that regard, which I know does not mean much for the 5% of people, which is still thousands of people who are waiting for their benefits. Our office so far has assisted about 350 constituents to get through to unemployment, to get their cases resolved. But we know some people are still waiting. So we're hoping that should go into effect right away, and should get a few hundred more staff in at the UIA for the next 6 months to make sure that people are taken care of. Beyond that, the legislature and governor reached a deal for the budget for fiscal year 1920, which is good. We are facing as a state about a $6.2 billion revenue shortfall over the next 2 years, but they struck a deal for this year, which includes a net $256 million gain actually for schools, because we know, especially as schools think about reopening in the fall, and hopefully we can do that safely, everybody gets back there, that they're going to need PPE, additional equipment, making sure every student has laptops and hotspots. I know Rochester Community Schools has done a fantastic job in that regard, but we want to make sure that that is all taken care of. And there's also additional funding for local municipalities in that budget deal as well. Want to make sure everybody's aware that is not for fiscal year 2021, which begins on October 1st. So we're still going to need to negotiate and come to the table. We are continuing to push our federal colleagues to pass the HEROES Act, Michigan's budget shortfall, when you look at other states around the country, is actually relatively conservative. There are many states who are facing double-digit budget shortfalls. So if you take a look at the $3.2 billion that we got in the first round of funding, ideally, if we could double that in the Heroes Fund and make up our budget shortfall, we've got to come out of this on strong footing. There are good positive conversations that are continuing, but my priority, just so you all know, is making sure we don't see cuts to schools, we don't see cuts to municipal funding, and we can continue on our trajectory on infrastructure. Infrastructure was in a rough place before COVID. That hasn't changed. So we want to make sure that our infrastructure is safe as people get back to work. And then finally, the Return to Learn school reopening plan was released. Dr. Shaner has been an incredible partner on that. And from there, all school districts are required to use that as a benchmark and then create 3 different reopening plans for themselves. One for the current phase of reopening that we're in, which is phase 4. One for phase 5, if ideally, in a best case scenario, we continue to control the spread of COVID-19 and can loosen up on some of the mitigation efforts. And one for the scenario that none of us want, but we have to be prepared for if the spread and the hospitalization rates tick up consistently and we have to go backwards and be prepared. We don't want to be caught off guard. We know how disruptive that was for parents and students when everything changed, in a week in March. So that's my update, and I would be happy to take any questions.
Council, any questions for the Senator? Councilmember Peterson.
Hi, thank you, Senator McMorrow. Again, it's a pleasure to have you here for us. Regarding the driver's license and that, so the one issue that still is outstanding is people who need to have their driver's license not expired so they can purchase a home and get a mortgage is still on the table, and they're not able to get appointments for a couple months out. When they go online to find a place, and they've been going to different locations to even do so, to travel to, just to be able to do it, and they can't. And that's a requirement to have a valid ID. Do you think there's anything that can be done to expedite something like that for those? Because it's not just the renewing of the license. When it comes that time, they actually have to come in and do that, as well as their, passports and that, if that's their only identification.
Yeah, much of that can be done at a kiosk, but I will bring that back up again with, both the banking industries and the real estate industries and see if there's anything that can be done to waive that until September 30th. Because I just don't want to see people get stuck if they are still waiting on a license renewal. Obviously, getting people into homes and signing mortgages keeps our economy moving and keeps people in homes. So I'll make both of those suggestions and see what we can do.
And I guess as a follow-up, a lot of that has to do with them having to retake the test, so they can qualify again. So it's just not at the kiosk unless there's an online version of the test people could take.
Got it. Okay.
Thanks.
Councilmember Keithley.
Thank you. Thank you, State Senator McMorrow, for being here this evening and for giving us that update. And I also just wanted to say thank you for your work on the Cocktails to Go legislation. I was really glad to see that pass. We have so many small restaurants in our community and bars. I think they're really benefiting from this right now. And I was really glad to see it go through. Thank you.
Yeah, we were happy about that one too. And obviously once we saw the incident at Harper's in East Lansing and we had some outbreaks here in Oakland County, it couldn't have happened at a better time because we want to make sure people can survive, and that's another revenue stream. And it's just exciting to see cities around the district start to do really creative things outdoors in the social districts as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Albrecht.
Thank you, Senator McMorrow. And I've been working with Elizabeth from your office on some unemployment issues, and we've got them down to a handful. I hope those additional 200 people really need to go into the technical benefits area of the unemployment insurance agency. With all the fraud early on, some of our not fraud cases in our company have been caught up in that, and we're, they've gone now the 12 weeks without unemployment benefits. And I know hopefully it'll be retroactive, and your office has been very helpful to that. But if any input you can give to the UIA to focus their work staff towards that area would be very beneficial to people who still have that 5% you mentioned in your conversation.
Certainly, will do.
Any further questions, council? Senator McMorrow, thank you very much for coming.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Stay safe and stay cool.
All right, thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
Next on to public comment. Leanne O'Connor, is there, I see a number of people, phones, but I haven't seen anybody raise their hand. Jane?
I don't believe we have any public comment. We do have a number of callers for other items that will be, they'll be chiming in later.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on to approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of June 22nd, 2020.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson. Support by Councilmember Sage. Discussion. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the consent agenda. First is the appointment of election workers, and we have to really thank all these election workers because they're putting themselves out there in these difficult times, so thank you to them. B is consideration of a special event application from Bethesda Church to hold Heart Cry event on August 1st, starting at 6 p.m. at the band shell. And last is review of the current 2020 event calendar.
I'd like to make a motion to approve all but the church event.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Peterson to approve A and C. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilmember Sage. Okay, Madam Clerk, the roll on A and C.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. So I've been doing a lot of thinking and listening to a lot of the constituents regarding events coming to the community that are from outside of our community. They're thrilled that our city has gone back to having events and the farmers market and different things. However, I feel that bringing in for the community outside events into our only place of safe refuge for people of our own community to walk and enjoy, that we are, subjecting them not only to outside events taking place and that, but we're also taxing our own system of our workers and that by having to clean, disinfect and everything more so with added people coming to the park. So I just really think that until we're out of this state of emergency that we are currently under, that we have a moratorium that we do not allow any outside events to take place in the community because we're not benefiting from these. I know this is something for council discussion, but I feel it's very important that we keep a place that all of us can go to and enjoy. And I think that some of these communities, some of these events need to take place in their own community without coming into other communities at the moment.
Okay. Further comment from council? Is there a motion then to approve or not approve?
Mayor?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Keithley.
Thank you. I think Councilmember Peterson makes a really good point. I feel really nervous every time I see these applications come through. Anything that's going to cause people to gather right now, especially in our city, exposes our risk factor. So I think that she makes a really good point.
Thank you. Councilmember Sage?
No, I'm thank you, Mr.
Okay, we have a person calling in who has raised their hand, so I'll call on them. Cornell Burka. Are you there?
You guys hear me?
Barely.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, a little better.
Okay, I apologize. It must be the microphone. So I'm actually, so thank you so much for, considering this event. I'm actually one of the pastors at the church that actually filed the permit application,
There
together
you
with
go.
Mr. Shedno. So, I just wanted to, say that, while I do see the point that, there are people coming from outside your city to use, the band shell in the park. Two things to bring to mind there is that there are a lot of people that come and use the park, on a weekly and a daily basis from outside their city of Rochester, and together with the young, high schoolers and the college level students that I pastor at the church. We're there quite a bit, enjoying walking around the park and getting ice cream from the Dairy Queen there, and I see that there are other people that come from other, parts of the Detroit metropolitan area as well, on a daily, weekly basis. And then secondly, is that I think I heard someone say that there isn't that much of a benefit, to doing this, but I'd like to say that there might be a benefit in doing this, because we're actually, the scope of this meeting is just to have some really uplifting and nice music, playing in the park, really, and really be an encouragement, to those who are walking around. As you guys know, this is a very, very difficult time, and a lot of people are scared. There's a lot of people, worried, and we just really want to, lift up some souls and some spirits by, providing some nice quality music from the band show. We have a band that will always obviously respect all the ordinances and the directions, and we're willing to comply with everything that the governor has said. So I'd like to say that there is benefit in doing, this event. So, I hope you'll take that into consideration when you make a decision on this event. And one other thing that I wanted to mention that I forgot, that I just remembered right now, is that we had this event, in Hart Plaza last year. We had, quite a few people show up. Now, it was just a really big hit, very positive, and everything, when we left, everything was clean, everything was put back in order. There were no issues. We organized everything. We had a very organized team. Everybody was very respectful, and if we use the band shell in Rochester, we do the same. Obviously, this year it's going to be a lot more low key and smaller numbers because of the ordinances, but we have a very, very kind and respectful staff that is very good at organizing as well. So we're going to take good care of the facility and the location. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what are the current state guidelines? Is it 100 or 250 or for a social gathering?
Mr. City Manager?
I'll let the chief actually comment on that, and I'm happy to jump in.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Sure. The current rule today is 100 is the limit, the top limit for events for capacity. And then mask use would be required if social distancing would be become an issue in an outdoor setting. So those are the two things that would come into play. 100, and then obviously mask use would be recommended in any kind of group setting like that.
So we would have to actually police that action to ensure that we don't exceed the 100-person limit, ensure that there's social distancing, ensure that people are wearing a mask. Is that correct?
We would provide extra patrol for the event, just as we do any event in the park. And that would be one of the things that certainly the officers would monitor when we had an event this weekend. It would be the same situation.
Councilmember Albrecht?
I was going to ask the chief. I know I saw on social media the second studio of Rochester had the dance recital. Were they able to maintain those guidelines you just articulated?
Yes, we did have one call on that. The officer that went out believed that there were adequate social distancing. I was here around noontime, and it was near capacity, but it appeared to be fine.
Thank you.
Councilmember Salvia.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on that event last night because I was actually there in the park. It was wonderful, and people were wearing masks, people were distant. They were enjoying themselves. In fact, I would think that, next year, with or without COVID, they may just want to come back because different people were able to experience their dance routines. So, I think for us as a community, as long as we're following the state guidelines and people are complying with the rules, I think it's important that we give that opportunity. At a meeting 1 or 2 meetings ago, we talked about, could we have increased usage of the band shelter because it's safe, it's outside, it's fresh air. This is a place where we can safely have some sort of life in a very, very hard time. So I think it's part of our role as a community to be open to business, whether it be our residents or others in our surrounding communities.
Councilmember Albrecht?
We've always called our downtown, the regional downtown for communities, and concur with Councilmember Salvia that, as Pastor Burka said, they're going to maintain the under 100. I notice it's an evening event, so I would guess that people will probably have dinner before going to the band shell or frequent some of our establishments after that. So again, I agree. It's an outside event. It's in the band shell. We'll follow the guidelines set up by the governor. I would support approval of their application.
Okay, do we have a motion? Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also like to say that in the past, I've been concerned with voting for any event that would bring people together to gather for concerns regarding the virus. And, at this point, I guess at some point we have to start taking steps forward, whether they be baby steps to, test the waters and see, if events like this can be done in compliance with state regulations and guidelines. And I think this is the type of event that may give us the opportunity to test that water. So, so I would be for it.
Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you. Well, the reason I pulled it from the agenda to discuss in regards to this is because the application states 100 to 200 people. So I took that as meaning that is more than what the state wants right now for us. And two, that actually is more taxing to me on our community than as a benefit right now. And it goes against what we've actually talked about holding our own events with under 100 people. So, the benefits, the event is probably an awesome event and all of that. My concern is the benefit for the community itself to take on the added things to control that and take care of that event at a number of almost 200.
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So maybe my question is to Pastor Burka. How would you control that, the volume of participants for this event?
Pastor
Right.
Burka?
So, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, so definitely we would announce from our church pulpit what the expectations are from this meeting. There are going to be some vital kind of team players that are going to be part of that. They're going to have to be there, but we'll work at making sure that people who show up for the event. By the way, we're just telling people to maybe bring a blanket and keep 6 feet at least or more of distancing and have masks and all that stuff in the park, or bring a lawn chair. So we're going to stress the importance of making sure that people abide by the executive orders, and we're going to be respectful, and we'll have good communication within the context of our own congregation to ensure that those who are more elderly or prone to sickness would make the right decisions for themselves, and then obviously small children as well would probably be exempt. So we've done a lot of this lately, especially with church services and other things going on in the community, because we're always doing stuff. So we've got it handled. We'll communicate effectively, essentially, and we'll ensure that people abide by the expectations.
So as a follow-up, if you were to exceed the state mandated amount, you'd have an understanding too that we could stop the event, correct?
Well, I mean, so this is news to me. Obviously, if you have that authority and you can, well, that's, yeah, the power's in your hands. I'm not aware of what you can and cannot do, but all I can say is, yeah, we'll try to abide. And I understand that there was a request. I think in the application there was a request for, a couple of, police officers for whom we're praying and, we deeply care about from the city of Rochester. It'll help patrol the area and work together with us. So.
Yeah, and I just say, I mean, the state law is 100 people. So
Right.
You need to be aware of that.
Yep, we understand. We understand. So,
Okay.
we'll do our best to get 100 people.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
I guess I'd just like to get the chief's thought on that. Is that something that the police department would get involved in terms of managing the event if the crowd gets too large?
Chief?
You're on mute.
I mean, we would certainly assist them, but I mean, it would be best for them to understand, and I believe that was clear in the write-up that 100 would be the limit. If they didn't feel that they could abide by that based on the number of parishioners, that certainly would be a difficult thing for them to manage. So I guess that would be a consideration that I would suggest that the church review. If they feel that that's something that they can't abide by, they may want to wait until the limits change and we get to phase 5 where we would have that ability.
Pastor Burka, can you, can you tell us that you'll abide by that 100 maximum?
Yeah, so we'll do our best to abide by 100 maximum. I can say that, but one other thing that I wanted to mention is that we have in that park. I'm there almost every Friday with our our high school and college students, and we enjoy the park there, and I see at times lots of people walking through. So any given day over the course of a few hours, I'm assuming you could have over 100 people who walk through the park or spend time there in close proximity, maybe not at 6 feet. So, we may get into the situation where people are coming and going, but what we'll do is we'll set up, security in such a way that, if in the area beside the band shell, we have ushers and personnel that can stay there and ensure that, whoever's coming off the hill in the area will be, it won't exceed the number. So.
Okay, thank you. I keep hearing you're going to do your best. I don't hear that you're going to.
What I said is we'll have the ushers and security team from our church try to basically monitor and ensure that we have a good count of those who are coming in, and we'll keep the number to 100. And if that means that somebody's allowed in later and then somebody checks out, we might do that, but we'll keep the number at around 100. So
thank you. Councilmember Keithley.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for your patience, Pastor Burka. I think this is the first time we've really had to deal with an event as a city. We haven't felt comfortable giving a reason for people to gather because of the pandemic and increasing our risk of exposure. My question is for City Attorney Crott. I'm wondering if there is any liability on the city's part if we aren't abiding, but if attendance measures aren't abided by, or if there's contact tracing. Is there any liability on the city's end for hosting events or allowing events in our parks?
No, I wouldn't suggest that. I mean, the rules are for the gathering, how many people. It's not a city event, city sponsored event. So it would be completely up to the event goers who have the liability exposure.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
Yeah, I guess in listening to this discussion a little more and getting the input from the chief and sort of the guidance that this will probably be left up to the applicant to manage more so than anything else, I do have a little more concern with this than I did previously. Yeah, I am and have been very hesitant to vote for anything that's going to draw people together, and leaving it in the hands of the applicant concerns me. Thanks.
Very good.
So if I may just, may I make a comment there? So
last comment, please.
yeah, so it's not just going to be in my hands personally. We have a team of ushers and security personnel that had the event handled in the past with 200-300 people. Obviously this year is going to be different, and we're prepared for it, just to add some comfort.
Thank you. Okay, is there a motion to further this? Okay.
Sorry.
Councilmember Salvia.
All right, so I apologize, technical difficulties. Apparently the iPad has a better internet connection. So I'm sorry I missed some of the discussion, but from where I left out in the meeting, I can make a motion to approve the event with the requirement that they do not exceed the current state guidelines, which would be currently 100 participants, as well as all other social distancing requirements. Also wanted to clarify end time of the event. Does the application say 10 p.m.?
I believe so.
Okay. Is that our normal end time for a park event?
Sunset.
I thought it was sunset. I mean, at 8 o'clock for the other event the other night, it wasn't a Friday or Saturday night, but I think sunset is probably a better guideline by then. I don't know, sunset might be 9:30, but again, motion to approve the event with those stipulations.
Motion by Councilmember Salvia.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Albrecht. Further discussion? No. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
No.
Bavacqua,
No.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
No.
Sage,
No.
Salvia.
Yes.
Your Honor, we have 3 yes, 4 no. Motion failed.
Motion fails. I'm sorry, but this COVID thing makes life difficult, I guess. So try it again sometime, please. Okay, next is old business. There's none. Table items, no. Next is the public hearing for the tot lot grant. Mr. City Manager.
All right, thank you, Mayor. We do have Linda on, who's our consultant helping us, as well as Anthony, who's been our main contact for the tot lot grant program. So I'm not sure either Anthony or Linda who would like to speak first.
Sure. I'll do a real quick summary. A lot of details are in the packet, but just to give everyone an idea of why this is coming up now. This whole project stems around needing to replace the playground equipment in the tot lot. It's a lot of the parts have been broken. It's outdated. You can't get parts for it anymore. And so this came up a couple years ago. Through researching the amounts and how much it was going to cost to do it, we realized that it was going to be several $100,000. So we had started researching grant opportunities on how can we get some grant funding for a latest, state-of-the-art, ADA accessible, and really give an enhancement to our park. Going down that path led us to Linda Davis, who's on the Zoom call with us tonight, and she'll talk in just a second. We're at the part of the application process where we have to have the public hearing. We had this already, but obviously COVID put delays to that. So the spot we're at now is the state changed and allowed an extension. So we basically turned in the application with as many things as we could turn in given the situation, and allowed us to turn in the public comment information at a later date, which is where we're at right now. So we're still following the newly amended rules, and Linda is basically steering us through that process. So Linda, if that was a super quick summary, I'll hand that over to you.
You did great with that. You really did great with that. Can you all hear me okay?
Welcome back to City Rochester, Linda.
Thank you very much. And I love this project. I got to commend your city manager and Anthony and the team. This is an exciting project. And as he stated, April Fool's Day is always when the Michigan Department of Trust Fund, Natural Resources, has these applications in. And normally, prior to the submission, we have these public hearings for public comment to review. But because of COVID, and people weren't meeting, you weren't having public meetings, we weren't Zooming then, we still were allowed to submit the application with everything but the actual public hearing comments because of the extension they gave us through the supplemental period, which we are in right now. So the purpose of the public hearing is for the public to look at what we've submitted for the tot lot at Ludlow Park. And it is a grant through the Department of Resources Trust Fund. And the grant is a $300,000 we can apply up to, which would be a $225,000 grant to the city of Rochester. And the local match would be $75,000 for the city of Rochester to put into effect all of the beautiful plans for improvements to the tot lot. So for the purpose of the public hearing is for the public to look at. We have received a tremendous amount of community support, which we have turned in those letters with our grant application to the state of Michigan. We have received from all of our legislators. In fact, Senator McMorrow gave us a wonderful letter, all of our state reps, all of the local folks, and also the residents and the people the users, because it's important for the state, because these are public dollars that we're applying for funding, to see that the public loves what they're about to invest in from the state perspective. So that is why we're having the public hearing at this juncture. Right now, we're waiting for the state. Normally, in the month of June is when they do the site visit. They're doing things a little differently because the DNR staff, the grant coordinators, are working remotely. I am hearing that we're going to probably have our site visit now, probably either by the end of this month or sometime in August. And then we'll be in a supplemental period, which means we have an opportunity to get points on our grant application. This is like a 9-month having a baby process with this particular grant. I always say we deliver a nice grant at the end of delivery and labor. And usually they announce these grant awards, and I really think you're going to score extremely high because of all the elements we're including in the project, as well as all of the community support we have behind it. So that is in a nutshell why we're having this public hearing. And also after the public hearing, you'll see later, there's some action that we need you to take for resolutions of support, but that's after the public hearing.
All right, thank you, Linda.
Okay.
Okay, so we will, Madam Clerk, are there any correspondence before we start the public hearing?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so we will open the public hearing at 7:49. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing at 7:49. So, Mr. City Manager, do we need a motion for first reading and adoption?
There is a resolution that's there.
Okay.
That's what Linda was talking about. It's in the packet. That's on page 47 for everybody's packet.
I'll make a motion to approve as presented.
Okay, so a motion by Councilmember Peterson. Support by Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua. Discussion? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Mayor, real quick, one thing.
Yes.
I think there's actually, Linda, we need both resolutions, right? So it'll be a
Yes.
motion to approve both resolutions.
Correct, as presented both.
Okay, yeah, both of them. Okay, I just want to make sure everyone understood there was two of them in there. Thank you.
And Mayor Pro Tem, you're good with that?
Yes.
Okay. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you. And Linda, good luck for all of us. Thank you so much for your work. You're on mute, but that's okay. Okay. Next is the legislative deliberation is the extension of the landmark tree moratorium. We have on here a report from the tree committee. Maybe Councilmember Albrecht just maybe give a brief thing on that as why we're doing the moratorium. Just that I think that, you can explain why.
Thank you, Mayor Bixon. After last month's, the previous council meeting, the tree committee invited the HOA, the representatives from various HOAs in the city to comment on the ordinance, the tree ordinance we'd put in place. We had that call last Thursday, the 9th at 8 a.m. It was a fruitful call. We heard from, I think, 3 or 4 different HOAs. I had some follow-up correspondence from all of them. While we made progress, I spoke with fellow council members Salvia and Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua and felt that we needed to have another meeting with the HOAs to resolve some of those issues we couldn't finish in that one call, and that putting the second reading of the tree ordinance on the agenda for this meeting would not be prudent. So in light of that, we wanted to extend the moratorium on the landmark trees while we continue to finish up this process, which we expect will be done in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Very good. So we need a motion to extend the landmark tree moratorium if that's what council desires.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Councilmember Albrecht, support by Councilmember Keithley. Discussion? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you. Next, we have the second reading and adoption of the resolution regarding remote meeting participation. The governor has not lifted the current executive order. I don't see that happening anytime soon, but we have this. And a question I had for the city manager is, before we start, it says it expires in 90 days if we adopted it. Don't we want to have this go on indefinitely? Attorney
Yep.
Crock, you had a.
Yeah, I was going to say Attorney Crott can kind of speak to it, but before, let me just add a caveat. Before the 90 days would start, the governor's executive order would need to end. So the current one goes through the end of July. If she extends it through the end of August or through the end of September, the 90-day window wouldn't start until the executive orders cease. And Attorney Crott can probably speak to why just a 90-day window.
Okay, Attorney Crock.
Yeah, so the idea was temporary. When we put this together, the idea was that that even when the governor removed the exemption from having a physical in-person requirement, that the idea was that there may still be some people, members of the public, members of council, administration, staff, that may not be 100% comfortable coming back to such a meeting. In fact, there is no prohibition in the Open Meetings Act for having some participation remotely, and so this was essentially an extension of the ability to have it remotely, even when the executive order is lifted. So there is no, if City Council wishes to have this a permanent situation, that 90 days could certainly be removed, but that was I guess the instruction at the time when we put this together was for a period of time. That's not a magical 90 days. It's just, maybe I think it was more of a test run. I mean, the City Council chambers, that's going to be, I know that administration has worked on social distancing layouts, but this would allow, because right now the city does not permit remote participation in any of the meetings. So this is one step below. Everyone's participating remotely. This allows whatever City Council wishes. It could be permanent if City Council wishes to change that procedure.
Thank you. Councilmember Keithley.
Thank you, Mayor. I reviewed this today. I spoke with City Manager Wing about this as well. I feel very comfortable setting the number of council members required at the state's, at our open meetings law minimum, which would be 1. I'd also like to recommend that be our mayor. And then if more council members want to participate in person, they can, but this is because I think it's important we give the maximum amount of space to our residents to come and participate in our meetings. So I think the fewer of us in the actual building, the more residents can come and participate. So I wanted to make that suggestion.
Thank you. Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. And I would concur with Congressmember Keithley on that. But I would also go further to add that we should strike the 90-day. I don't think that's at any time we can come back and revise this resolution. I don't want to be bound to a 90-day. But I do have a follow-up question. So when we go to the one person in physical space, will every participant, so everybody in the audience is going to have to wear a mask based on the latest executive order. Does the mayor then have to wear a mask for that meeting while he's there? Okay, just want to make sure we're clear on that. But I would support the resolution, but with the removal of item 1 with the 90-day expiration provision.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, thank you. And under number 6, I would like number 6, I think should actually state that if the connection is lost, the council will wait to allow the council people to get logged back in if there is anything to do with technology, if it's technology related, and if unless the person actually states that they are leaving the meeting, because then of course then you would know that they're not there to vote, but they actually left and everyone knew that they left permanently.
Okay.
So could we also add then in the resolution, I like that feedback from Councilmember Peterson. Can we also add that participants must adhere to the executive order concerning masks within this resolution?
Councilmember Salvia.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so I support both of the suggestions that have been made, but I also think council needs to keep in mind technology is great for some people, but technology is not a friend to others. So I think we also have to look at what physical things can we put in place in the chamber so that we can all come back to the chamber. What if we put plexiglass in between our positions and that way we could all be back in the chamber together. I think we also need to think about that as well.
That's a great idea.
Staff actually has looked at that, and we would be able to physically distance and have all of the council members and the mayor, Mayor Pro Tem up at the dais. We would move the attorney, myself, and the clerk to allow the actual spacing along with plexiglass in between each person, so both to your right and to your left.
And I think, my opinion, I mean, eventually hopefully we'll all be back at, city council chambers. But I don't see that happening anytime soon, probably. So that's why we're looking at this resolution. Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, thank you. So city manager, how soon could we have that configured for us to be able to go in and sit and have the public come in? I know the public's having a hard time not being able to be a part of these and really, state their concerns, because they've had a lot of concerns that they feel they're being left out.
We'll need to test drive it, but we're setting everything up so the 27th, so at the next council meeting, we would be able to move forward with the hybrid sort of system, so that if some council members or some residents still want to partake on the Zoom component, they could, and others would be able to be in the council chambers. Again, we'll need to limit the number of individuals. Right now the max indoors is 10. To Amanda's kind of comment right now, I would recommend, so that more residents come in, that we maybe even see or make a request, so we don't have, to be shuffling council members into staff meeting rooms to remote in. But there just needs to be a balance. But technologically, we'll be ready to go as of the 27th.
Okay, no, and I understand that, and I'm fine with all of that. I want the residents to be able to come and speak, so.
So, Madam Clerk, so if we pass this with the change from the 90 days to eliminating the 90 days, can we do the second reading adoption?
Actually, it's a resolution, Your Honor, so it only takes one time for council to consider it. And you can either do that tonight and Attorney Crott could make the changes and forward it to me, or you could have him make the changes and it could be submitted back for the 27th meeting with all of council's changes made to it.
Sounds good.
Well, I was going to say, but do we need to have that done before?
I would recommend you would have it done prior to, I guess, opening the meeting. So tonight would be the one, unless Attorney Crott has another comment.
The only thing I would say is the resolution is fine to, the changes that have been suggested are very minor. I wouldn't even suggest you need to bring it back. I think if you moved it tonight with from what I heard, the changes are is at least one member of council, that being the mayor included in that, and then the wearing of masks and all other social distancing requirements. And then the one question I had was on Councilmember Peterson's, the wait for the vote if someone gets disconnected. I think that's a fine, but the only thing I would suggest is that there should be some type of time limit, because if someone completely goes dark, then that you kind of held yourself to no further action for that meeting.
So Mayor, if I may.
Yeah, Councilmember Peterson.
Okay, so the problem with not putting something specific in there is because it'll happen to someone else at a time when it's very important. I mean, I am stated as being absent at a meeting that I was not absent to, okay? I did not leave a meeting. If we're going to continue virtually, either we have to make sure that we allow all our people to get back on, unless they say, Mayor, I am out, I won't be here when we go from one meeting to the other. So if nothing is stated and we have to follow the rules of contacting Leanne or Jane, okay, to do so, then I believe that once everyone knows, yes, unfortunately, that would be the communication between the council member and Leanne or Jane, letting them know that, yes, this is, it's a lost cause, I can't get on, whatever. However, when you use Zoom, those who host the meeting are the ones who allow the people in, okay? So that is where, if you're going to continue doing Zoom, that is the responsibility of those who are hosting the meeting to make sure those people can get back on. So if it means that having to resend a link and getting back on that way, so be it. I mean, I have no idea what happened, but I had sat there for over 3 hours and was very, very upset that this took place. And I was not afforded my opportunity to vote at all for the public. So the minutes show that I was absent. I was not absent. So whatever needs to be stated here, city attorney, as you let me know. So
I'll just say maybe something about they have to follow the procedure to, if their connection goes out, they need to call in to continue, call in, and then they can continue the meeting by phone if need be, or something like that. Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
Wait a second though, Mayor, because Blaine worked with me trying to do that as well. And that did not allow me to do that, because within a matter of 3 minutes from the text to Blaine to you, you were done. You had already reestablished, made the vote, and left and closed the meeting, all within 3 minutes. And to me, that's not acceptable for this here. So I would like this to be clear that everyone has an opportunity to continue unless they tell you we are not going to be part of the meeting.
Right, and we did not have that procedure last meeting. Now we will have that procedure going forward.
Could I maybe offer a suggestion of, I think maybe where Attorney Crott was going is maybe a 15-minute, because by then we would be able to at least establish a phone connection.
I know, but here's the problem though, and I hate to be a pain in your butt tonight, but as an elected official, I have a right to be at the meeting and vote unless I tell you I am leaving. So unfortunately, if there has to be a resolution in here somewhere that you have to have a guarantee that I'm able to call back in and do a vote, or that person is able to be logged back in.
Well, and the reason why I guess I'm looking at the 15 minutes is either myself or somebody from staff would be able to, quite honestly, come from City Hall to any one of your houses with a phone and be able to do it. I know that's not the most ideal safeguard, but I'm just trying. I think where Attorney Crott was going was it could hang up the meeting, and I know that's probably the point to say we need to stay and wait, but if we're having such technical difficulties, I would rather have myself or another staff member come over with the capability, if it's a hotspot or if it's just using another remote connection, to allow any council member to still participate by phone or phone and video.
Or the council member could drive to City Council, to City Hall, and attend the meeting.
Could also be in.
Well, isn't a phone call, isn't a phone call enough? I mean, you don't need to drive to somebody's house.
No, that was Mayor. That was only because those numbers did not work. That's why. Because the meeting had already ended. Once a meeting ends for any reason, all those numbers, all those links don't work. That's why I couldn't get back on in that time frame.
Understand.
Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
Oh, okay. I remember what I was going to say now. Just curious, is the mayor okay with the concept of having to be the single person at least at the location in City Hall for a meeting, or should the mayor have the opportunity to pass that responsibility along to someone if he's not feeling comfortable? I'm just I don't know if I feel comfortable forcing one of us to specific person to be at a meeting who may not want to be there.
Right. So I guess so then maybe you could say the mayor or a designated person. How's that?
I'd be more than happy to sit there at all of them.
Yeah, I'll show up in my hazmat suit and my stuff. So.
Mayor Bixon, this is Tammy Byers from City Beautiful. Perhaps with everything that's going on in the world, maybe there should be a guideline, and again, a guideline about what happens when people get kicked off of the internet or something like that. So this doesn't occur.
That's what we're trying to do. Yeah.
We have one in place.
Yeah, we have one now. We did not have one last meeting. That's
okay.
the issue.
Mr. Mayor.
And trust me, if I couldn't get back in earlier, I was just going to drive down to City Hall because I see the chief sitting there. There's not 10 people there. I could have gotten there.
Right?
I may have missed it.
Councilmember Keithley.
I just wanted to comment on Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua's point. I suggested the mayor so that way, like, I would also like to be in the council chambers, and I think all of us would really prefer to be in the council chambers. So I just felt like he was the natural representative to be at the council chambers. And if we wanted an alternate, I'd probably suggest the Mayor Pro Tem, just because you are representatives, and I think that all of us want to be in the council chambers. So it'd be better to have our leader there if possible, but not to pigeonhole you into going if you don't want to, Mayor.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Mayor.
Attorney Crock.
So just so I'm clear, so this would be applicable for city council, planning commission, zoning board, all the cities, boards and commissions?
I think it should only be, sorry, Mayor, I think it should only be for the city council people who are actually the ones that have to make these decisions.
Any other? I mean, I think it should, you know, if it's good enough for us, it should be good enough for all the other boards and commissions if we have concerns about, you know, safety. That'd be my opinion.
I wasn't referring to safety, sorry.
I hadn't been thinking about the other boards and commissions, but I think it should apply. And then we just have to define who the one person is. You know, is it the chairman of the planning commission or the chairman, whatever, of the board? That would be the one.
And maybe a way to say that is the chairman or a designated person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we did actually in item 2 actually say city council or other boards and commissions.
Okay.
Okay. So, Madam Clerk, do we have a motion on the table?
Not yet, Your Honor.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution with the expectation that item number 3 be changed to at least one council member, with the provision that council members be given the opportunity to log back on if their connection is lost, and the elimination of the 90-day threshold.
Motion by Councilmember Keithley.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Salvia. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you. Next on to reports and regular business is non-union wage recommendations. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, if people are following along in the council packet, I'm going to be referencing my memorandum on page 52. So annually, I come before City Council, typically during our budget process, with a recommendation for our non-union employees. The reason why I do that is our union employees are covered under collective bargaining agreements that are typically 3 to 4 years. So that group of our employees, about 75%, are already covered. Any increases or adjustments are spelled out in the collective bargaining agreements. As for our non-union employees, several years ago, council chose, instead of doing just a cost of living adjustment known as a COLA, or just a flat increase, actually doing a kind of a hybrid, pay for performance. And since that time, I've been coming, so I want to say since 2016, I've been coming before city councils with a recommendation for a specific dollar amount. And knowing how many employees we have, I use the bell curve to basically look at the number of non-union employees, and then go out to the market to see what our comparables are looking at for wage adjustments, as well as our union contracts, our internal comparables. And that's both public sector and private sector. So this last round, we were able to build into our city council budget $25,000 for the pay and performance. if I would have done the math, well, I guess I did do the math. If I wouldn't have done the bell curve component, we'd be looking at about $30,000 to $31,000 would be if everybody scored the highest score. Typical bell curve, you're not going to have everybody, you're going to have some fall at the top and some fall at the bottom and then the middle. And so what I've been requesting for the last couple of years is 25,000, and that's what we have budgeted. What that spells out to, and then again, what I wanted to reference on on my memo on page 52 is this is a 0 for people that are scoring unacceptable, up to a 3%, which is really exceeding expectations, which really are our top performers. I will note this is the first time that I'm also I have an asterisk, as it's spelling out our non-union fire employees, because we've now have a formalized fire department and no longer a volunteer department. We have a hybrid. So we have full-time employees that are covered underneath the collective bargaining agreement. And then we have non-union fire employees that what I'm asking for as part of my recommendation is that we follow the same hourly wage rate for the non-union fire employees as we are with the new collective bargaining agreement. So if an employee is making $17 an hour full-time, that the part-time person who's doing that same job would also make $17 an hour. Happy to answer questions, but that's kind of the gist of it.
Council.
So when will these reviews take place then?
Yeah, so the reviews happen on the employee's evaluation date. So for some employees, their evaluation is July 1st. Others are throughout this whole year cycle. So like my contract is, mine is at the end of October. So normally it's right at the end of October, early November. Anthony's is in early November. So it happens on the anniversary date. So it's throughout this fiscal year is the time period. So there's not one set, it's not like a step plan or an automatic.
Councilmember Salvia.
So the funds are in the approved budget. And so what you're asking for is the allocation method in terms of the pay for performance rating system.
Correct. That's really what I'm asking is for the authorization now for this rating, what I've proposed.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson,
Support.
support by Councilmember Salvia. Further discussion? Councilmember Albrecht.
Just one point, I will support this, and I'm sorry I missed this in the budget meeting, but you know, when I see needs improvement still getting 1.5%, this doesn't really jive with my experience in the past. And you know, I've always thought the bottom 2 unacceptable needs improvement would be zeros. And if the person improves to a standard or above standard, then they would get an increase at that time. But I'll still support this, maybe for further discussion next year, Blaine.
Yeah, and I'm happy to note our needs improvement, there's really rarely used. It's typically maybe a new employee or an employee that's been promoted up to a position. And so there's usually either an action plan for them to continue to move forward. Really for the lower 2 categories, the needs improvement and unacceptable, those employees are typically washed out within 2 years. So if it's in their first year that they did score a needs an improvement, that's basically, you know, the red flag that they're on our watch list. We're giving them extra attention. And unfortunately, those employees that don't meet our minimum standards are typically not here that next time around.
Councilmember Peterson.
Thank you, Mayor. So mine is just a comment. I mean, this is just, it's been a very difficult year. And I know that everyone will be going through their own processes. Are we equipped here in this number of 25,000 to, if everyone was to get 3%?
It would be about 31,000 is what would be needed. But again, through the standard process in the last 4 years that I've been here, we have not actually even come up to the 25. I think the highest was, 24,000 and change. So again, it takes quite a bit to score at that exceeds expectations to get a 3%.
Okay, I was just looking at what everyone's had to go through due to all this with COVID and the stresses all our employees have been under working in these types of extremes. So I appreciate the bell curve. However, I think that at 25, I don't want to end up shortchanging employees, because to me, I think that all of our employees, union, non-union, have been exceeding every expectation because of what they've had to go through. So I just want to make sure you have enough money there if needed.
Sure. If we somehow hit a number and I need to come back to council for that additional 5, I have no problem coming before council to explain that our employees have even exceeded the standard bell curve and all expectations.
All right.
Okay. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you. Next on to budget requests for the fiscal year 2020-21. We have a few of them. Mr. City Manager, why don't you go through the process, each one?
Yeah, and I think Anthony's going to pull up on the screen, or maybe it's Marcy, really the budget request. And I don't know if council would like to move forward first with the 2 commissions, so that you can allow those individuals to get out of the meeting and a little not hold on for all the staff requests. And those are the City Beautiful and then the Historical Commission.
Okay, so we'll start out with the City Beautiful. So Anthony or Marcy, you want to bring that up or not?
It's up to you. If you want it up, I'll log in. I got my laptop here. I can pull it up on the screen. It's the same thing that's in the packet, but up to you, Mayor. I'm happy to.
For the page in the packet.
It's page 58.
Yeah, 59 with the chart.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Council, do you want to bring it up, or is there a motion?
Good.
We're good.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson to support, and support by Councilmember Keithley. You see your hand up.
Support.
Further discussion?
Question on the motion. What is the detail of the motion?
This the City Beautiful, the 13,500 request?
Oh,
Yes.
to approve City Beautiful, the 13.5.
Yes,
In the
that's
detail as presented. Okay, so I have discussion on the motion then.
Okay.
So in there, I saw 2 numbers. I saw $10,000 for a mural, and then I saw 1,000 in the 13.5. So what is the plan for the mural? Maybe I think Tammy's on the meeting.
Yeah, Tammy. Tam, you got to unmute yourself if you're there.
Yeah, I'm trying. All right, so the $10,000 was to do a mural on the big green building in the park. The one where it's the DPW building.
Okay, yep, I know exactly which building it is. And so that's $1,000. Originally, we thought it was 10, and then it's only 1,000 to do it.
Well, we've actually had more discussions on that, and like how would we present that? You know, would we open it up to the schools and the art students in high school, or would we hire somebody? And I will tell you, because of the pandemic that we're going through, kind of conversations have ceased about that. But that's what we were looking at. And that was just based on going on the internet and looking at hiring somebody, knowing that it would have to go out to bid. And that's where it came from. So it's 2 different things. We were looking at high school students, and we were looking at professionals or artists to do it.
Okay. Well, I'm really in favor of murals. I think there are several beautiful places in town that are just ready for a mural, and I certainly would hope that City Beautiful would continue to work on that. I'm also wondering about the detail behind pollinators. It's $6,000 for pollinator gardens, which we all love our pollinators. We all have one in our backyard now, but I'd like some detail on what are we spending the $6,000 on?
I will send that to you. I will send that to Leanne and she can distribute it to you.
Okay, because in my mind, we've done a lot on pollinators. I'd rather see more on murals because we have none. We've got a lot of pollinator gardens, but those are my thoughts. And I really want you guys as a committee to do what you do best. But those were just my thoughts.
I appreciate that.
Amanda?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was looking at, Tammy, I was looking at your email of February 20th to Marcy, which seems like years ago now. And when I do the numbers, it comes up to 12.5 and then the mural is unknown. I'm supportive of the 13.5. I just, I'm again, I like Councilmember Salvia's question. I'm just a little confused as to where that money's going, because if you add in the 10,000 that was over to the right on the email, then it goes to 22,500, which is not what you're asking for. You're asking for 13.5. So I was just confused. Are we approving 13.5 and then you guys are going to use that money appropriately and may take some from the pollinators and put it towards a mural, or just help me understand better?
Yes, that is correct. So not 22.5, 13.5, and yes, more towards the murals.
Okay. Councilmember Keithley.
Thank you. I just wanted to expand on Tammy's point that there has been a lot of discussion around how to spend this budget and these budget requests. We're very interested in murals and beautifying our park areas. That $6,000 for the Rochester pollinators really comes back to some of the upfront costs to buy plants to give away. As well as fulfilling our mayor's monarch commitments. So there's several commitments laid out in that pledge that we're working to fulfill. And a lot of the costs associated with the Rochester pollinators has come out of private donations. Essentially, Marilyn Trent has fronted a lot of these costs. And I think we are looking to support her so she is not the only one funding this project.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of follow up on that. I did have a discussion when I saw this in a budget meeting. Initially, I talked to Marilyn about the 6,000, and yeah, they do provide seeds and plants at events. That promote the pollinators, promote the community, and I think that my understanding was that was for funding of some of those purchases of the plants and seeds.
We're good. Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I guess I would suggest, though, that each one of those projects would have it laid out a little more with more information, so we would know that, because I would like to see that this is what, Maryland spent, this is what's being reimbursed, this is what we need going forward for the items that are on the mayor's pledge, monarch pledge, and do it that way, because then it's really clear. Because 6,000 for that, I understand there was a lot that was done, but I also know that the city already spent a lot of money on getting this going, and I don't want it just to be, we need to really see receipts for this, and I'd like to see bids for any of this stuff going out further for whoever's going to be doing it. It's kind of in advance, I don't want to micromanage or anything, but just to get it, because these are now past reimbursements, is kind of after the fact. I don't know, I'm not comfortable with that.
I don't believe this is for past reimbursements. I just think this is support for what we're already doing, because so much of the costs have already been fronted from Maryland. This is to help her not be the only one continuing to fund this moving forward, but to offer some support financially from the City Beautiful Commission.
Very good. Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
And I think one of the things we have to look at is the value that that the program has brought to the community. I mean, you know, it's there's been news reports done on it. I know that Wiegans, when I've gone there to try to get indigenous plants, they're just inundated with people. And when you mention Rochester pollinators, they're like, we can't keep this stuff on the shelves because of so many people coming because of Rochester pollinators. They couldn't be more happy with the program from their perspective. So, and there's people in other communities, they're now calling it Michigan pollinators. It's kind of taken on a life of its own. So I think those are the kind of, you know, programs from a community engagement standpoint that we want to try to support. And ultimately, you know, this is a pretty nominal level of support and considering the size of the budget. Obviously every dollar counts, but this is a proven winner, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Council, I know that you can't see my hand waving, but so Marilyn did send me, and we did review this on our last City Beautiful Commission meeting. It's a great PowerPoint. The state of Michigan actually reached out to the pollinators, Rochester pollinators, and wondering if we are a nursery. So it's a great, fantastic thing that our community is doing. And as Amanda pointed out, you know, monarchs for butterflies, the mayor. And again, I will send you that information, but please keep in mind that what you're seeing here was submitted pre-COVID. And there was no, I mean, there didn't have the opportunity, I guess, to change it up. But anyway, I am more than happy to share that pollinators PowerPoint with you. It's just, it will make you, it's just awesome. It's great.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And, you know, Tammy, I think everyone has done a great job with that. Marilyn's done a fabulous job. I think all of that. I just think that we should be receiving something that just shows like a breakdown of how that money is going to be spent. You know, if you need so much for plants and things like that. So it's more of a budgetary item that, you know, is this going to be a reoccurring? Because it is something that you have is continually growing and, you know, yes, has taken hold and many people are doing things and we have them now in the park. And, you know, we have funds that are going to be used probably through the DPW as well to take care of the one in the park and all of these different things. I just, if we can actually just have something that just shows what it's going to be used for in the future would actually be helpful. So there's a true plan, like we're going to buy, you know, you spent, you know, it would have been like Maryland bought 2,000 milkweed plants and distributed them out, something like that. I mean, that's what I'm thinking that we need to have. So it's not just us, it's just so the public knows, you know, we're not just giving $6,000 to butterflies.
Understood.
Thank you. Anything further? Councilmember Albrecht.
Had my hand up like for the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, Marcy, can you take that down so then I can see everybody else? I appreciate that. Albrecht.
Mr. Albrecht, before you begin, I do have the PowerPoint from the pollinators. If you would like to, I can send it to Jane and she can put it up on the screen.
I don't need to see the PowerPoint from the pollinators. I think we all on this call support the pollinators. I have a garden in my backyard. You know, I've supported Marilyn and the pollinators. My point is consistent with Councilmember Peterson's. I know the memo was sent back in February. It's now July. I have nothing against the 13,500. It's motherhood and apple pie. I'll support it. But just how those funds are proportioned so that not, you know, 45% of our budget isn't going to pollinators. Maybe it is, and maybe that's the right spend. Again, I don't want to micromanage it either, but you know, you guys do a great job on the City Beautiful Commission, and hopefully we can get the bang from our buck for the 13,500 that I would support and approve tonight.
Very good. Marcy, you having any luck with that? No?
I don't need to see it either.
All right, I can't see everybody else now. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
He wants the screen to go down.
Maybe she could send it to us though.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all we need.
Yep.
There you go. Thank you.
Yep, I'll send it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Any further comments? Okay, Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you. And good luck to the City Beautiful Committee with that now.
Thank you.
On to the Historical Committee, Mr. City Manager.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Dr. Petrie or somebody else actually called in. Jane, I can't tell who the phone call people are. I don't know if they've spoken to you.
Doesn't look like it, so why don't you go through the
Sure.
Mr. City Manager.
Yep. So the Historical Commission's overall request is $19,750. Let me pull up their specific items that they're requesting. The first thing is $10,000, which would go towards archiving. This would be in partnership with the Rochester Hills Museum. To have a shared database of the archived materials that are currently located, well, they were at the point in time at the council chambers room, but they're now partially in my office and then a storage room across from my office. As we've made some other adjustments since this has originally been created. The other items are $500 for the Founders Day for a to be announced date in 2021. $400 for various membership fees for the commission, $5,000 for the Greater Heritage Days for May of 2021, again, a date to be determined, and then $600 for reprinting coloring books, or if there was going to be basically new artwork and a layout, it would cost $32.50 is what their cost was. So those are the specific elements and the total. We have not. I will note we have the one thing that we have not done yet is the partnership with the Rochester Hills Museum. We've continued to talk and work through that. This would actually have one of the archivists be entering in the garments and other artifacts into a database. And that's really the next step in the process, and that's estimated to cost about $10,000.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Albrecht. Discussion, Councilmember Salvia.
Yes, thank you. So in the approved budget for the Historical Commission, we have $8,900, $8,800, something like that. So question, is this in addition to what we already have in the budget? And so what are those budget funds going to be used for? And since we didn't do Heritage Days this year, did we keep the $5,000 or where did those funds go?
Anthony,
Blaine, would you like me to take that one?
Sure. Yeah, I was gonna say, you know the
Yeah.
specifics on.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yes. You're correct. The 5,000, unspent, so that goes back to the general fund. This is the total ask. Some of these items are what is in the annual ask: the Heritage Days, the membership fees, the Founders Days. Those are all the normal asks each year. The new asks that'll be above normal is really what Blaine had mentioned, that archivist co-op with Rochester Hills, that 10,000, that's new. So that's really the biggest item that's actually not a normal annual request.
So the ask for tonight is really the delta between what's in the budget, which is the normal, it's around $8,800, and the new item, which is the archiving, the 10,000.
Correct.
Correct. Yep. So a hair over, call it 11,000 is the
Okay.
the actual ask. And even though it's in the budget, we still like to run through the process, and especially too, so council is aware and the public knows, what is the historical commission doing and what are some of the things that are getting worked on. So it's nice to bring this kind of up to say, hey, these are the kind of things we're doing. We're looking at archiving. We want, like Blaine said, we have stuff all over City Hall. We'd like to get, archived properly, and especially if it's needs the proper the materials in that for the ink, and we don't want to lose some of that history from degradation in that. So
Okay, Councilmember Albrecht.
Yeah, Councilmember Salvia, these are some of the questions that came up during the budget discussion, especially the $10,000. And I support this budget because we are taking advantage of this archivist, I think I said it right, who works for Rochester, the city of Rochester Hills, and we can tag on to him or her for this work that needs to be done. All companies are doing stuff like this, so I support this, and I thought it was a good question about the 5,000 from the Heritage Day. So if you need a motion, I would make a motion to approve the Historical Commission budget request.
There's already a motion made, Your Honor.
Okay.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, thank you. And I, as a past historical commission liaison, this archivist couldn't come at a better time because this has been something that they've been really trying to get an agreement with for the past 4 years. So, and it's very imperative at this point too, that this does get recorded. People who have donated to the city are, not happy that we haven't found a home for it. So thank you very much.
Good.
Further discussion, Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. City Manager, next agenda item.
Yeah, so the next couple ones, probably just on the budget asks requested, kind of going through. There were 2 requests in our police department. There is 2 requests to replace our dispatch council furniture, and also it makes logical sense to do the replacing of the carpeting that's underneath that furniture and throughout the whole department. And I think that the chief might be best to be able to explain, some of the details. But most, again, our dispatch council, is in use 24/7 with the dispatchers there. It's over 15 years old. The modern technology, putting in, the flat screens and other things are different than the old CRT TVs, as well as some of the other components. This new furniture would also allow us to have standing workstations, which would allow some flexibility. And Chief, I think you're still muted, but you might want to jump in.
Chief, did you want to say something?
Sure. I mean, that pretty well explains it. It's just over the years, we've had a number of upgrades to the technology, which has added a number of monitors and other items to the workstations. And they really are outdated. Some of the, as you mentioned, the stand-up functions and the ability to adjust it ergonomically for the dispatchers doesn't exist. So this upgrade will really modernize what we have there and provide a better work setting for our dispatchers, and as far as climate control and adjustability and that sort of thing.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. So now we can approve all of them together, or we can do them at one at a time.
Make a motion to approve all as presented.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Peterson.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Salvia. Further discussion? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
Thank you. Next is item C is an enterprise fleet contract and vehicle lease. Mr. City Manager.
Happy to talk on this one too. So if people are following along in our packet, we're on page 82 or 83, depending on which one you're looking through. And I do see that there's at least one or two individuals from Enterprise on the screen, or at least their names are on the screen. So as my memo stated, since this past November, staff has been looking at how we actually procure and really the different ways that we look at our vehicles. So if that's outright purchasing to a lease to own, and then we started looking at the different types of vehicles, be it gasoline, is it diesel, and then electric and the CO2. So we started looking at some alternatives. Going through this process, we came across the enterprise fleet system. I actually dealt with this when I was in Illinois. Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua has a neighbor down the street who happens to also work for Enterprise, and we were able to make some connections with various individuals. Enterprise, with their overall purchasing power, actually has been beating the Mitten, which is the Michigan cooperative, and they're able to beat the purchase and the lease options for the various vehicles. We had their staff go through with myself, finance and public works, and look at everything from cars to trucks, and then I had our attorney look at the contract document to allow us to enter in to an agreement with Enterprise with their fleet management program. Tonight, what we have before you is entering into that agreement, as well as what I would call a pilot for one specific vehicle, which is a 2020 Chevy Bolt. It's an electric vehicle, and specifically looking at this electric vehicle for our building official that would be making inspections and doing things around town, as well as a pool car for our staff that pretty much would be in our immediate area. The nice thing with this pilot is, again, with an electric car, you have very little maintenance, and then there's also no fuel cost because it's electric. I've had a few council members ask about where would we be charging this vehicle. We'd be able to take advantage of the charger that's actually over by the police department, and we'd be doing it on the off-peak times, so that we're not taking up space that a resident or visitor would be utilizing it. We have already also looked at, there's a few grants right now for charging stations, and we looked at potentially, if we do have some requests, or if we do bump into some things, that we could place some charging stations in the parking structures. That could benefit us as well as for our own specific vehicle during the wintertime, as we would no longer have to shovel off the vehicle, and it would also keep the vehicle warmer, as the batteries do tend to not fully hold their charge in the colder climates. That's kind of the Reader Digest version. There's the PowerPoint that the Enterprise group did put together that's in the packet following my memo. Overall, I will note that we do have one vehicle that we eventually would be putting up through Mitten that would most likely cover at least 1 year out of the 5-year lease. And since this is a lease to own program, we're looking at at the end, the Kelly Blue Book value of over $12,000. So that would more than cover 2 years. So if we're looking at selling off a vehicle that would cover one, and then hopefully having a vehicle that would cover the other two, basically we're looking at the cost of really 2 years. The nice thing is we did budget for the full purchase of a vehicle of 30,000. So instead of just outright using that $30,000, this is a good time to also look at that lease to own option, which would only be under $6,000 annually. It's $5,827.68 to be exact. So I'm happy to answer questions. I know we have representatives from enterprise as well as finance and public works.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Yes, Blaine, first off, this is a city vehicle, not a police vehicle, as you explained.
Correct. Yes.
I think piloting an electric vehicle is a good idea. Couple questions I had on this. Most people who have electric cars get something installed in their garage. I have one in my garage that gets installed, and I know you're talking about possibly doing one in one of the parking decks or somewhere, around City Hall complex, instead of being dependent on those 2 or 3 that are out there in the parking lot in the elements. So my understanding is you can work with DTE to get some rebates or help with all those kinds of things. So if we were to do this, I'd like to, the second point is to sort of take the long view that if this is a pilot and say in 2 to 3 years we have a fleet of 3 or 4 electric vehicles, I'm just making up a number, that we find a place where, 1, they are protected from the elements, and 2, you'd have them for city vehicles in either one of the parking structures or some other place to be determined, DPW or someplace like that.
Yeah, and I should have noted that we've actually already looked into the DTE, and then there's a few other grants that basically cover about 75%. So let's say they're about $10,000, and we could get about $7,500 towards a station that would allow us to charge more than one vehicle. So if it's a 2 or a 4, depending, and then there's also the timing, what level of a charge. So we've actually done some of that preliminary work too, and I've met with 2 different vendors that would help us navigate, and both of those 2 vendors have been able to get the grants through DT and through consumers.
Very good. Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
Yeah, just full disclosure, as city manager mentioned, Eric, who put this together with Blaine, did reach out to me as a council person, knowing me from the neighborhood, said, who should I talk to at the city? This is what I do. There may be an opportunity to save you some money. I told Blaine that I would be passing Eric or his information along to Eric, and Eric would be reaching out to him, and that's the extent of my involvement in this.
Very good. Councilmember Salvia.
Thank you. I think this is excellent, and I love that it's I'll call it a regional manufacturer that we're looking to lease this vehicle through with this program. One thing that I couldn't find, there's a lot of information, maybe I missed it. Looks like there's 3 different lease options: open end, self-funded, and closed end. The open end, there's no wear and tear. Which version are we looking at here?
Eric, I see you on the call. Are you able to?
Yeah, I would love to field that question, Blaine. So Councilwoman Salvia, in working with Blaine, he had indicated the city would find the open-ended equity lease to be the most palatable, and that is the lease structure that allows the city to capture the resale value of the proceeds of the sale at the end of the lease term. That's what he had indicated, between the cash flow benefits and taking part in the vehicle's resale at the end of term to be the best fit for the city. But the nice part is, on any vehicle that the city would ever acquire through us, we'll actually give you the choice on all 3 moving forward. So whatever works best.
So if we were to do a second vehicle, we could have that second vehicle be a closed end, or is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. So a closed end lease is like your typical dealer lease. The miles are fixed. You don't participate in the resale value, but it's 100% up to you. Our job as a fleet management company is to give you an array of options have you choose what works best for you, and then implement that plan on your behalf in conjunction with the people from the city.
Okay,
Councilmember-
great.
I'm sorry.
So I think we need a motion on this. Yes.
Yes.
So I motion to authorize the attached agreement as well as the lease for the 2020 Chevy Bolt with a monthly payment of $485.64.
Support.
By Councilmember Salvia,
Support.
support by Councilmember Sage. Councilmember Peterson, discussion.
Yes, okay, thank you. So I guess I have a few concerns because that actually ends up being $29,000 at the end of the 5-year term. And my question is, usually, how long has most of our city vehicles lasted? That's the first question. Second one is, are we going to just do this on one vehicle, or are we locking into a whole entire program? And yes, as much as having an electric car is cool and energy efficient that way, I'm concerned about how that's going to be with a city employee out driving around, and say something happens, and because our weather's not perfect for these as well. Will it be more of a problem later on? And that's actually almost double of what you can actually get a lease for right now, just at a local dealership right now, if you got a car. So I guess I'm not seeing where the value's right there at the moment.
Mr. City Manager?
Sure. Let me try to address each one of those. And again, Eric and Anthony can jump in as well. So with the purchase, if we just outright purchased it, we'd be looking at I guess a higher cost. With since this is a electric vehicle, the standard is really the 3 to 5, and we did have them kind of calculate out the various options. 5 gave us the greatest resale value, and due to the really the longevity of a battery, just I think all of us can look at, even our cell phones is probably a good indicator. After it keeps on getting charges, it loses its maximum capacity. So for us, a 5-year based on, I guess, historical kind of data has shown that that's kind of the sweet spot that we would get the most money back, which they're estimating to be a little over $12,000. And again, you're right that we'd be spending out over the length of this just about 30. But if we're getting 12 back, when we sell it, that's a significant amount of that overall cost. The charge, or for the amount of miles that it would be able to get, would be around 300. And again, we're just under 4 square miles. So with our inspector, driving around, I guess right now we're not anticipating any issues. The maintenance during the 5-year would also be covered mainly underneath the manufacturer's warranty, so will be very little cost to the city. And when we've talked with other communities, they've all recommended first to pilot one vehicle, and this seemed to be the right time. We've held off on replacing a vehicle, so that's why we have the $30,000 right now. And instead of using and just purchasing a traditional vehicle, I'm recommending that we pilot so that we learn some data. And then there's the ability in the future with this agreement for us to look at other vehicles from trucks to cars. But this one seemed like the most appropriate and kind of a good dipping the toe in the water. And Anthony, I saw you kind of bouncing around, so I don't know if you want to make a comment too.
Oh, sure. Just to answer a couple of the finance ones. We do, as Blaine mentioned, we typically cash fund the light vehicle purchases. The more expensive vehicles, the fire trucks, the Vector trucks, the ones that are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, we've been starting to look at lease purchase agreements for those. On this one, we do have budget in the current budget, as Blaine mentioned, the $30,000, maybe a little over that, as a replacement. That would be the normal replacement. Since Manager Wing took over, we did start to do more car shuffling. So instead of purchasing new vehicles as part of the regular replacement, we actually, one of our administrative vehicles is actually one of the old police vehicles. So instead of making a new purchase, we just took one of the slightly not good enough for police vehicles, but fine to drive around as needed as an extra vehicle for the admin car. For these uses, the ones that we have admin, they're typically about 10 years. The last couple that we sold were, well, the one was a little over, I think it was 12 years. On that one, we've typically had 2 to 3. So we definitely at the 7-year mark is not uncommon, and I think the longest I've seen was about 12 years. But so every 4 years or so, it's one of them gets cycled back out and a new one gets cycled back in, if that helps answer the longevity side of that.
Doesn't Mayor, I have a follow-up.
Member Peterson.
Okay, so follow-up then is, okay, so this says in 5 years. So how can we, I mean, anything 5 years old technology-wise is usually not worth anything, speaking back to that. So how can we be guaranteed that, this is still going to be worth 12,000 and to somebody at a point in time when technology changes that much, even on this here?
That's a great question, and if I may, I can field that.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So, Councilwoman Peterson, thank you so much. That's a great question. As a company, Enterprise owns and operates a fleet of about 1.35 million vehicles. So it is our job to actually monitor the resale market minute by minute. So part of one of the benefits that you get with working with Enterprise Fleet Management is you're actually going to have a local account manager that is out of our Farmington Hills office. Obviously, she's been working remotely because we all have been working remotely, but they're going to be working with the city and actually letting you know on an annual or a semi-annual basis where the vehicle stands with regards to resale value. And because you don't have, there's no fee to turn the vehicle in early. If we were to see that the vehicle was losing value precipitously because technology is advancing so fast, we would be in a position to advise you that, hey, there's no fee to turn this thing in early. It might make sense to replace this in year 3 as opposed to year 5. But we will actually monitor the resale market on your behalf.
Okay. Well, Mayor, one other follow-up then, I guess, okay, so, and that's good, and I appreciate that, Eric, that's good to know. I still have a problem with paying like double in a monthly payment right now for something you can get for half the price on a lease at a local dealership right now. So for what we use it for, it wouldn't even probably go over the mileage restrictions that they give you. And things like that. And I think that even locally, we could have, a relationship with someone to give us something that we could get 2 vehicles for the price of 1 almost.
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is actually an option that I proposed the last time I was on council. So I'm very much in support of this option, and also have a working understanding with Enterprise Fleet Management, and do trust them and their numbers, given that they are one of the leading remarketers of vehicles. So I would be very comfortable in approving this request.
Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
Yeah, not to get too deep into the weeds on the cost benefit of this vehicle, but also there would be no gasoline costs. There would be electrical costs associated with it. There may be some upfront investment in a station, but that would benefit us for decades to come. So that's another thing that should be considered, even if we don't have the cost analysis in front of us.
And I appreciate those comments, Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua. The problem I have though is this does not make, this isn't, you still have all the other costs that needs to still be maintained throughout the year, and things like that that are outside of just this vehicle. And we are still paying double for a payment than what we need to right now. I mean, times are not good right now financially. And yes, as much as this could be something beneficial down the future, I don't think that we're in a position right now to do this for something that we still have to put more money into. So tonight's request does not go into the detail of all the added expenses that you're going to ask me to approve tonight. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua.
Also, another thing to consider is with the electric vehicles, the first service is at 100,000 miles. I just happen to own one. I've had it for over a year now, and aside from, I guess, wear and tear on tires or windshield wipers or that sort of thing, there is no scheduled maintenance, no oil changes, for example. So.
Okay, council, further discussion? Do we have a motion?
Yeah, we
Yes,
do.
you do, Your Honor.
We have a motion, okay. I'd just like to say, on a really cold day, I think those electric cars are cold. Other than that, Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Vixen,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
No.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you, and thank you, Eric, for attending the meeting.
My pleasure, and I'm very happy and very proud to be a resident of Rochester.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Next, we have the Oakland Macomb Interceptor Drain Series 2028 bond discussion. Mr. City Manager.
Yep. And Anthony's going to jump in on this one too. We did have a discussion looking at either to upfront pay the amount out or actually use the bonding authority of OMID. So Anthony, if you're still on mute,
Anthony.
Oh, hang on. Yes. Sorry, re-clicking. Forgot I just undid it to redo it to undo it again. Yes. So we have the bond interceptor drain. So as council and residents may or may not be aware, we're a part of the Oakland Macomb Interceptor Drainage District, OMID 3Ds. And essentially what that is Oakland County through the Water Resource Commissions kind of operates that joint collective, the sewer system and the pump station and the Pontiac treatment plant and the Northeast Interceptor arm. There's all these parts that are for the common group of everyone in the communities. So what they do is when projects come up that are part of that common, everyone gets a benefit from it system, they allocate those costs based on how much your usage of the system is. So there are meters for all the sanitary flows. And for Rochester, that's in the memo, you'll see me say that the 1.9526%. So of the usage into the system, that's Rochester's usage. That's our city usage. We do have some communities on the northern part, just the way it's flowing, that do come into Rochester. There's meters coming in and going out, so we don't get counted against some of the parts of Rochester Hills and that come into our system. Those are also metered, so it's a pretty solid number on where they have these meters to make sure your usage is your usage. So the projects that have come up, they were looking at doing this over about 3 or 4 years. I believe since the bond rates are obviously, money is as cheap as I'm hoping to ever see again. They seem to push it all up front as in issue instead of doing a few issues. So they're looking at doing all 84 million up front, which was the remainder of the issuance. Council, if you remember, we prepaid the legacy costs. That was, so part of the 100 million, there was, I believe that was 12 million or so. That was the legacy costs that we prepaid. This one is 84 million, and then there will be another smaller one coming up. So we met with infrastructure committee. We got to play with the new model with Raftellus to see, okay, what would the rates look like? You know, how much cash is in the bank? Do we pre-fund this by paying up front? Do we incorporate the payments into the rates? And then we also got to look at the capital plan to see, okay, well, over the next few years, what other projects are coming down that are not DWRF or SRF related? Through kind of the general consensus through the discussion and utilizing the tool with Raftellus, it seemed to make the kind of the most sense to share the issuance costs of the bond by just letting the county do the bond essentially for us, because they issue one bond for any municipality that isn't prepaying. So it'll be one issue. We get to share then the issuance costs with them. And then looking at cash funding the other roughly $1.6 million project that'll be coming down the pipeline, instead of looking at trying to do a shorter bond, or it kind of basically works against you to do a bond for a low amount. Our bond counsel typically recommends no less than 4 million, and 5 is kind of the general minimum, just to get the savings. Otherwise, you're going to pay a lot up front. So recommendation you have before you is just information to share to all of council. Happy to have any other discussions. The committee, obviously, as members of council can shed some more thoughts that they had in discussion on it. And that's where we are right now tonight.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Peterson.
I'll support that motion. And I would like
Support by Councilmember Salvia. Councilmember Salvia.
Yep, thank you. So for all of council and the public, there's a lot of information coming from Raftella, from the infrastructure committee standpoint. I'm not a fan of consultants. I usually feel like consultants, you pay them a bunch of money to tell you what you already knew. But with Raftella, and I think in general, residents have questions around our water rates, our sewer rates. Are they fair? Are they equitable? And, kind of peek under the tent, if you will, the feedback we're getting from them is very good, that our rate system is good. And this analysis that we went through Raftella to look at this made it really, from a committee standpoint, very clear. If we tried to pay for this ourselves or use fund balance for this, we would have to increase rates by 4%, and we still would run below the minimums for the funds. So, amortizing it allows us to keep the rates the same, no increase in rates, and therefore the actual users of these improvements, it's amortized over the life of the system. So it makes a lot of sense, and we'll be talking more with council, with the public, on our water rates and the results of the study. So just a little hint of what's to come on that, and I know we're going to have that on a future agenda item. But this is a smart decision for us to do.
Thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, thank you. And yes, and to piggyback on Councilmember Salvia's comments, it is, and this is something that's, it's a major necessity for our infrastructure, and all the communities surrounding us actually are, participating as well. And this is just our portion to maintain this, which for the health and public safety is very much needed. So thank you.
Councilmember Albrecht. You need to unmute.
I was looking for the button. I'm glad Councilmember Salvia took the lead on this with her financial background. She was really asked all the right questions at the infrastructure meeting. And again, I want to echo, I've dealt with my share of consultants also in business, and I think what our residents and fellow council members are going to see from this, the study and the Raftelis model is just a beginning of good things to come in terms of what they're doing, not just for the short view, because we're not in this for the short view, for the long view. This is not just infrastructure, this is water rates and everything else like that. So I just wanted to, we as a council approved bringing them on board, and I think this was money well spent that I think the residents will see also in years to come. So I support this this motion also.
Very good. Further comment, Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Next, we'll see reports from various boards and commission.
No, Your Honor, we have one more item. DPW
Oh,
campus.
I'm sorry. Sorry, Sandy. We will have a update on the campus renovation.
Yes, on the DPW campus renovation project. And what I do, I'm gonna share my screen with you. Okay, there we go. Can you see that? So in our DPW campus renovation, I snapped this picture today as I was leaving for the day. We have our first course of asphalt on. We have sidewalks, we have curbs, and we have windows. And our project is definitely coming along and starting to really take shape. And we're getting excited to see all of the things changing. Inside of our lobby right now, this is if you were sitting at the administration area looking out. This is you would see out here. And this would be if you were coming in those doors, you can start to see the header up above. That is actually where part of the receptionist area will be, the countertops and so forth for us to do the customer service area. Inside of our lunchroom, we've got the drywall nearly complete. They're working on the walls for the partition area that will go in. As you recall, we'll have a conference room there with a partition wall that will separate that from a lunchroom area so that we can have a larger training space for the staff, as well as have two different things going on at the same time within that space and create a usable space. So we have our beautiful windows in that overlook and allow a lot of really great natural light into that room as well. This is one of the offices where, again, most of the drywall has been done. They're getting ready to put some of the ceilings in. And I believe this week they'll be starting on the primer for the walls and shortly thereafter the paint on the walls. So it's definitely moving along and taking shape. Last time I presented, this was actually all studs going down the hallway. Happy to see, again, we're all the way through drywall, and the ceiling portions are starting to go in as well this week. On our north garage, the truck wash bay now has its floor drain in as well as a concrete floor, and the roofing has been done. They've also, punched through that wall in order to connect that to the other portion of the garage and installed some windows so that you can actually see between the garage and the truck wash bay for things that are going in there, as well as to see the vehicles in there. In our southern garage, our first hoist has been installed. So this is the smaller of the two that council has approved. The other one will be in shortly, I believe a couple more weeks. And our large air compressor unit that was also approved was delivered today. So we expect to see that being installed in some of the other electronic components that go with these things very soon. I know as we announced that the other compressor was being installed today or was arriving on site, our fleet coordinator came over and was very excited to see all the things taking shape in the garage and is very excited to see those. As we were cutting grade on the east side of the site before the asphalt went in, they had to remove some of the soils and bring in other kinds of gravel to create a proper base. As well as this is our ecology drop-off center. This is where the dumpsters will sit a little bit lower, and we will have an area for the residents to bring in their, come on platforms above the dumpsters to put their products in there. And of course, as we were digging down, we discovered debris, a lot of debris, full of glass, plastics, and metals. This soil was originally supposed to be reused on our site or taken off-site for fill dirt purposes at no expense to us. Unfortunately now, It is comprised of so much debris. We're going to have it, we're going to have to pay to have it hauled off. We are having a company this week come in and characterize it to see if it's, just make sure that it can go to a regular landfill. So within my contingency funds, I have included approximately $30,000 to have all the rest of this dirt removed. They're expecting it to be around 500 tons of soil. So we will know some more as we go on, but dirt is the name of the game at this site. And just with every scoop, we're just always hoping everything's going to be okay. So we're crossing our fingers this week that our soil characteristic testing will be good and it can go to a regular landfill. So when talking about the contingencies right now, our net use of our contingencies is still within our $200,000 that was approved. The new things that have been added to this chart since I presented last time where we did expect about a $1,500 cost to dispose of some of the contaminated soils that came out of where our fuel station had been constructed. That actually came in at $1,260. We had been budgeting for quite a while now, approximately $25,000 to have the soil removed from the east side of the site, like in front of the administration building. We did have that as well as the concrete removed, all of that $24,108. So just a little bit under what we were budgeting, but the concrete was included in that. And I kind of thought that would be an extra cost, but we managed to keep that under where we were predicting that budget to be. Merit Fiber is we're working with them to execute the contracts to link up our buildings as well as have fiber run. And in doing so, we determined that based upon our schedules right now and when Merit would be able to come in versus our contractor being there and working on the asphalt, it was more schedule advantage wise as well as financially advantageous for us to have Rewald purchase and install the handhold for the fiber, which is essentially a box that is going to be buried in the ground. If we wait for Merit, they would have to put holes into our brand new asphalt. We opted to go ahead and pay Rewald and save the holes in our new driveway. So that was another $2,200 that it's going to partially, it'll come off of the Merit allowance, but we're still going to be paying Rewald out of the contingency funds to have them do that portion for us. We've been having some issues securing our building on the south garage, the regular entry doors, otherwise known as man doors. Both of them have significant rusting all through the entire frames and through the bottom portion of the doors. So we're going to be spending another $2,500, $2,534 to have the doors replaced, although we are able to reuse the hardware, so that is saving us money and it will allow us to keep with the same locks and so forth. So it's just we have to have all new frames put in on them, and there's aluminum and steel doors, so they're a little more expensive than standard doors. The other cost that we've incurred so far was some electric changes in our kitchen area for the administration building. The $1,343 was so that we could have a ventless stove put in, as well as additional outlets put on the back side of that wall, which is where our employees will be at lunchtime. So we can allow for additional charging of devices that they have, or as we get more technologically advanced, we'll be able to have them charging their tablets there. It's just the load would have been too much on the circuits the way they're originally designed, and we just felt like this would give us some better options and give our staff better options during their breaks and or their lunches. And as I said, our soil and debris removal piles are going to be approximately 30 is what we're anticipating that expense to be. As we continue to go forward, we're always monitoring for cost savings measures, as so are our engineers. One of the new things we did was we were able to save $1,000 on a locker room floor substitute. Same rubber, same performance measures, just a different company. Even got the exact same color. Just a little thing. We're trying everything we can to try and stay on budget with this project, but still have the same quality product that we've always been looking for. So it's the little things, but again, we're trying to weigh the benefits versus the cost on some of these issues as best as we possibly can. So in looking at our contingency fund summary, we have expended $201,000. However, with the cost saving measures, that does actually come in to be only $158,981, leaving the balance of $41,019 in our available funding at this point in our contingencies. we're expecting some of those funds will be used as we begin some of the interior demo work within the north garage, and find some other things we may not be expecting within those walls. So we're waiting to find out, but we can't really cut into those yet. So last but not least is our schedule. As you know, with our pandemic, we had no construction for 6 weeks. Our previously occupancy for the administration building was in early August. Our substantial completion for the project, the overall campus renovation, was the end of the calendar year. Coming back from that, they actually expected, well, we're kind of pushing your administration building occupancy out till the early September, probably pushing out your substantial completion till the end of January. However, their project manager has been working with us and our staff, as well as working with their contractors and looking at all the little things that need to get done here and there. And so we might have a day of jackhammering in our building, but it meant that one thing got done. And so all the little nuances and all the little small portions of some of the other construction that needs to be done in the two buildings is now happening little bits at a time. And they've managed to say, yep, we have gotten those things done. We now believe you are back on track to have your substantial project completion completed all the way before the end of the calendar year. So I'm happy to report we are, like we said, once again, all the way back on our substantial completion. Little delayed on the administration building, but all in. We hopefully, it still looks like we will be all in on schedule as well as on budget. So always a good thing to have that news.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, Sandy, I just wanted to say, yeah, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say,
Excuse me, Sandy, you need to take that down again.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to
All
turn
right,
that.
thank you. Thank you.
I'm working on it, promise.
Councilmember Peterson, thank you.
oh, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say, thanks, Sandy. You've been always given a great update on the place. And I have to tell you that seeing the picture of, and driving by it, the place looks amazing. I really like the work that Frank Rewald & Sons is doing. And I can't imagine us even being here without them being the one helping doing this job. So, kudos to all of you for everything and everyone dealing with this during this time, but it's going to be great. It's a proud project.
It's definitely exciting, especially with the asphalt down. It's really starting to shape as something final.
All right, thank you, Sandy. Next is receive a report from the various boards and commission, receive a report from the Planning Commission. Mayor Pro Tem Babakwa.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We only had a couple items that we looked at. Well, first thing we did was we appointed a new planning commissioner, Christian Hauser. Moving on from that, we were taking a look at site plan for a change to an existing office space into residential. It's the Recipes building. There were some questions that came up on that one regarding accessibility, handicap accessibility, and whether the current plan provided enough of that, and whether there were requirements that perhaps weren't being met. And those questions were not answered, I think, to the satisfaction of a lot of the members on the commission. And there were some other questions and concerns. So I think that the applicant's going to try to address those and resubmit. So that'll be coming back to us. The other thing that we looked at was facade renovation for property on Wilcox, which I mentioned before, which is right by the DPW, and is going to be a showroom for classic cars, online sales. And it's going to be a beautiful renovation to an older sort of non-conforming property. And I think it's going to be a benefit, and that's moving forward. And I think that's it.
Very good, thank you. Next is a report from the Zoning Board of Appeals. Would that be Nick?
Yes, sir. Just real quick, we only had one item. It was to put a second sign on the Bondesk building. So I think it's Plant Moran and then Basso marketing company, advertising company, and the signs are already up. So they're ready to go with a waiver. They're nice proportioned signs at the top of the building. So now it's a 3-tenant building and fully occupied, so that's good. So
That's great.
it.
Thank you, Nick. Welcome tonight.
Thank you.
Next is a report from the Facilities Committee. Mayor Pro Tem Lavaco, whoever wants to.
I can chime in. I'm sure
Salvia.
Councilmember Peterson or Mayor Pro Tem may want to say a few things as well. So guess what? This is another consultant working with us, Amoresco, and I'm going to say the same thing. I am very pleasantly surprised by their work, and I'm pleasantly surprised with the amount of detail. We're going to own the results so that we can continue to use the tool. Administration can use the tool. And, the feedback back to us, we kind of all were wondering, is there going to be a big problem that we don't know about, big expenses? But my takeaway was, if we continue to spend at the same budgeted rate on maintenance in all of our facilities, that we will be exactly where they would want a municipality to be from a facility standpoint in 30 years. Versus they said many municipalities, when you go in there right now, they are in trouble. So very favorable. They use the words impressive. So we're in better shape than I could have thought. So other committee members, I don't know what you guys want to add to that at this point.
Nancy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I will just add that, yes, they were a very good choice to hire to do this project for us. I'm anxious to actually see it all, completely completed with every building. But I do think that in the end, this is going to be one tool that if we don't actually utilize this tool and everything moving forward, then shame on us, because this is something that we've never had before, and it was truly worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, first of all, when we were initially being presented the information, they had provided a graph of a line chart of where we would be if we were putting in our current investment level, which actually wasn't our current investment level. It was an investment level from a few years back, and we would have been in very bad shape. And my heart sank a little bit. And then they got forward a few more slides and realized that since then we've tripled our investment in our facilities, and we can afford to continue to do so. And in doing that, we're good for a good long time. And before getting this analysis for a few years now, it's been a source of anxiety as to what that monster is. We've never really had that done. We've been doing a good job of putting our finger to the wind and trying to figure out, based on all the great experience we have among our administration and our staff members in handling these things. But to have an outside perspective that gave such a glowing report to us set my mind at ease, because we've got a lot of budget concerns and challenges as we go into the future. And for me, it's been very difficult to try to think about those things and prioritize them and manage them when we had no idea what the status was of our facilities. So now seeing this and having a roadmap and having a prioritization list that they've provided, and everything down to the level of detail down to, exterior engineering, like all the different issues that a facility may run into, and what level of depreciation it's at is, it's quite a tool, and it's pretty exciting and comforting.
Very good.
Mayor, just one other real quick thing. I really like the fact too that this was an outsider from another state. So that really, that outside perspective, I think, is what we really needed. So.
Very good. So it's always nice to hear very good news. So thank you for that report. Next is a report from the Infrastructure Committee. Councilmember Salvia or Albrecht.
Well, I can start out. I mean, we talked about some of it, but coming to council, I don't know when it's on the next, on what agenda it's on, but it's going to be a presentation of the complete water and sewer rate study. So east side, west side, both systems, and it's very comprehensive. At our next meeting this week, we're talking about some of the communication strategies we're going to be using. And as a reminder, the committee has committed to 0 rate increases for 2021. So I think in light of the crisis situation, many families are experiencing, we're doing this rate analysis. The first thing, the radar goes up thinking, oh no, that means my water bill's going up. Well, we have committed to hold them no rate increases. Obviously, we can't control what GLEWA passes on through to us, but in terms of what we can control, no rate increases for 2021.
That's good news too, right?
Mm-hmm. Mark?
Nothing more to add except the one point Councilmember Salvia said. When we picked this consultant, one of the things we were adamant about is that we would like them to be as the experts to be able to speak before council. If we say things like Councilmember Salvia and I say no increases, but then more importantly, when they come out and they've dealt with other municipalities and explain where the dollar goes, I mean, they're going to actually show a dollar bill with where the money goes in terms of your water bill. It was helpful to me, not only as a council member, but as a resident, understanding that more, the infrastructure part of it, the actual water coming out of your, faucets when you turn it on. So I think, Councilmember Salvia said that earlier in the meeting. This was a good consultant we brought on board. And I look forward to not only the fellow council members, but the residents to hear from them in future meetings.
Very good, thank you. Next, to receive a report from the City Beautiful Commission, Councilmember Keithley.
Thank you. So just to start us off with I'd like to say thank you for passing the budget. I know that Tammy worked really hard on it, and we're glad to see some dollars advocated or allocated to these important causes. So to start us off, we're looking at the Rochester pollinators. We've sold 2,200 plants so far, as well as donated them. So there's a mix. Plants are being sold at the farmers market. We've attended twice now. We're also selling merchandise on Shopify. So all of the t-shirts and things have moved online. We have 2 new gardens. One has been planted at the Rochester Hills Public Library, and the Paint Creek Trailways did one as well. As Tammy alluded to earlier, we had to apply for a nursery license because of the plant sales, and because we've been so successful online. We had to actually apply for that nursery license, which Maryland has done and completed. We are also, it's neat to see the recognition that we're getting because of the Rochester Pollinators Group. The Detroit Zoo actually reached out to the pollinators to ask for help in creating butterfly gardens on their property. So Marilyn is now, and her team, setting them up with resources to get the zoo going on this initiative. So it's been really neat to see that growth. For Arbor Day, 2 oak trees were planted in the cemetery. We were disappointed that we didn't get to do any, show around it, but they did get planted. And we have notified Residential Standard of Excellence Award winners that they are being recognized for having outstanding curb appeal in their home. And we're also recognizing another good neighbor, and that's going to be coming up on our city council agenda. And that's all I have from the City Beautiful.
Very good, thank you. We had a report from the tree committee. Councilmember Albrecht, anything else to add? Okay.
No, Mayor.
Very good, thank you. Now, before we get to new business and referral for miscellaneous, as you can probably see, Pastor Burka has stayed on the line, and through the police chief, he is asked to address council since he's been here for so long. We'll move public comment up if that's okay. So Pastor Burka, you had a comment? Are you there? Mr. Wing, is he not there? Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry, I don't mean to be a nuisance here. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity. So, I wanted to let you all know that I spoke to my pastors, the other pastors that I work with. You know, I do this part time. I'm actually a manager, local manager at GM. But so I actually wanted to mention that we actually wanted to change the scope, if that's okay. And I don't know what kind of you know, impact that has on the decision tonight. So I let them know about your concerns, which are legitimate. And instead of taking the route of like, you know, up to 100
I can understand him.
Yeah, you're breaking, Pastor, you're breaking up. Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you. No.
No.
What about right now?
No, keep. Mr. Manager, do you have?
Yeah, Pastor, maybe I can have the chief maybe give him the phone number to call in.
Okay, so we'll move on with the meeting and he can call back.
Jane, could you maybe assist him with the chief?
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll move on to new business for referral and miscellaneous. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you. So for the check register, we had June 26th, 29th, and then July 10th in there. So those are the reports for the city manager updates. There were a few in the packet. I just want to highlight a couple of them and actually share my screen, and I'll quickly go through because I've promised council that this was the meeting that I would actually go through my roadmap. So the first item is our senior concierge services have started. Anthony has met with our first resident and it was able to assist her in processing her taxes to getting paid without her leaving her home, and also do a wellness check at the same time. So he's received good feedback, and I'm glad that you know, the finance department came up with a really innovative program to assist our residents. So again, big thank you to Anthony and his team. Next, wanted to highlight that the city again received a AAA bond rating. This is, you know, very exciting news, especially during a pandemic. And again, big kudos to our department staff. Anthony and Marcy did a lot of heavy lifting. Myself and some of our support staff providing some of that additional information, and we're able to use our consultants and get everything addressed. And the S&P did come out with their press release and really underlining the city as a very strong financial stature. And again, a big congratulations to all of council with again us reaffirming our AAA bond rating. And then I will share my screen here to grab my presentation, which is only a few slides. So I'll jump right in. We've accomplished quite a bit during the 2020, really 2019 through 2020 accomplishments from the charter items that the clerk led us through, some ballot items as well, revolving equipment fund, various contracts with police, public works, our fire unions, garbage and recycling contract, the $5 million bonding, our budget, updating our parks master plan, getting all the striping done, doing an RFP for our property and liability, updating some of our IT services, and then at least creating the community house RFP. Although we're not quite finished with that project, we did make some big strides. Next, moving on to the roadmap part, and I will share this in the upcoming manager's report as well. Our current July through September is the 0 through 90. So we're already, 13 days into this one, but working on our asset management plan through really OPEB and lead and copper rules, working on our next round of striping. All of those things, again, seeing the little key off to the side, what percentage, and we're fairly close to getting almost all of those things completed. Most of them, if they're not at 95%, getting close to the 100, a few of them are at the 75, like the traffic study. We will be finishing our reviews of the consultants tomorrow and then be making a recommendation shortly. 91 days through the next 180. Again, updating our digital documents. So that's a big thing that we've gone through and interviewed, but now we'd actually need to get through with the working on our next master plan, already starting our next budget. If you can believe it already, working on infrastructure, community house, doing our next round, which is of community survey, which this will be from 2017 to the 2021 now, so that we'll be actually looking at that, bringing health insurance, and then again updating our website, which is on a cycle as well. Finally, looking out the 181 days to the 270, and then to really the end of the fiscal year, looking at pay schedules and grading, succession planning and strategic planning, working on our sidewalk and alley projects, document digitization, facilities, budget, newsletter, working on our really a traffic platform, which will allow us when we're doing our projects to see what a new development, what impact that would have on our traffic. And then the final, really that quarter, wrapping up the master plan, updating our sustainable Rochester component, updating our Ready Rochester, approving the budget, doing workers' comp RFP. Hopefully by that point, we'll have the tot lot project underway, infrastructure, taking that to really a management plan, really implementing our communications plan, implementing our parks master plan, and then working on our parking. So a lot of great things that we're doing, and I'm very excited, and hopefully council is as well. And I'm happy to answer questions, but that's my conclusion for my city manager updates.
Very good.
Thank you.
Yep. And again, I'll include that the slides in the manager's report this Friday.
Great.
Okay.
Jane, I don't know if you were able to work with the pastor. Did I give you enough time?
I believe so. The chief was able to forward the information. I would assume is the 183 number. If we want to ask him to unmute, and see if that works out.
Is that you, Pastor?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
much better. Thank you.
Yeah, I apologize sincerely. So I just wanted to let you know that I spoke with the other two pastors that I work with on staff. I mean, I do this by vocation. I work for GM, but I do this with passion. There's obviously a group of young people that want to really sing and be in that band shell. They were asking, and I'm asking, if we change the scope, and I know it's really last minute, but we were going to eventually invite a limited number of people, but if we change the scope and don't invite, and we just really focus on getting that, allowing those youngsters to be out there in the band shell just to worship and to sing, and have a limited group that we can say, yeah, we're not going to invite, but we're just going to bring out a group of whatever, to set up sound and to, ensure that we have what we need there, just to give them the opportunity to do that. Would that in any way, influence, the decision that was made already? Could we reconsider maybe?
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, Pastor Burka, that's more open-ended than the previous response of we'll try our best. So what does that mean? There's no detail behind
That means that there will never be more than 100 people there, because we will not have an open invitation, right? Because if we invite, the church and say, okay, we want, these families or this age group or whatever, right? Because we do these events quite often. Without any of that, none of that won't, that won't happen basically, because then we're going to just basically gear this event towards some people that want to, just sing in the park and have have a time of worship and song in the park and under the band shell. That way, it'll be more limited to those who just, are strolling through the park that are not necessarily there, who want to just hear some nice music, right? And it won't be so much a, church type of service, right? That's what I'm
Pastor,
saying.
I think what we're trying to get a number around, is that number like 40 to 50 compared to 100?
I would say no more than 80. There's definitely not more than 80, because if you factor in a group of 15 or 10 people on stage, or whatever it's going to be, just so that we can actually get the social distancing, and then you have, a sound crew, and you have some people that are helping, set up some systems there and whatever. It's going to be very small, right? So if we could at least limit it to music in the park and, some people, just showing their talents, I think that would be sufficient, even that, right? And then if you guys can say yes, we just say, okay, yeah, we're going to go forward with it or not, because, if the 100-person count is a concern, we can definitely make sure that we don't even have 100. We could make sure we have no more than 80. We can make sure we have no more than 70. I can say 80, right? If you want a number, and I can say we won't have any more than 80.
Okay, thank you, Pastor. So, Council, it's up to Councilmember Peterson.
And Pastor, I think that, I appreciate what everyone is trying to do. And I understand that times are where they're at, and this worship and singing for these young people is, it's very important. So, I mean, I'd be more than happy to give you a yes vote for this, for that purpose, now that you have addressed the amount of people, because that was the biggest concern I had, was the amount of people that would be coming here. Just because I do think this is a goodwill thing for, everyone and the students themselves, because it is a trying time.
Leanne O'Connor?
So, Your Honor, so this is a process that I don't think I've ever guided council through. So when council makes a motion and approves the motion and wants to change the vote on a motion, there is a motion to reconsider, and that would have to be, the motion to reconsider would have to be made by a person on the prevailing side, which was the failure. So that would be Bixson, Bavacqua, Peterson, or Sage. Then we would take a vote on the motion to reconsider, and if that passes, then a new motion could be made. Just to let you know what the process would be.
Then I would like to make a motion to reconsider
Okay.
the event.
A motion by Councilmember Peterson. Is there support?
Can we support from the non-prevailing side?
Yes, yes, you can.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Albrecht. Discussion, Councilmember Keithley.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say, I think I played a little bit of devil's advocate in this discussion, but ultimately voted yes. And I just wanted to explain my reasoning for that. I voted yes because it is following the governor's guidelines. So I felt comfortable with that. I felt good about knowing that we couldn't be held liable. I also felt comfortable knowing that this is not our event. So we are not setting up a reason for people to gather. It's this group's decision. And since it is following the governor's guidelines, I feel comfortable with that.
Okay. Further discussion? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Okay, this will be a roll on the motion to reconsider, and then we will take a new vote on the previous motion that it was going to approve the special event application not to exceed and end at sunset. So for the motion to reconsider, Bixson,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia,
Yes.
And Your Honor, you could ask if there's any further discussion if you want to open that up.
Well, do we need another motion?
You don't need another motion. We're going to re-vote on the previous motion that was made.
Anything further? Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So would it be to memorialize this, do they need to submit a revised application so that we have a complete understanding of what we're voting on here, particularly in the not to exceed provision on the event? Because as Ann stated, it does say between 100 and 200 people. Well, I'm not going to approve an application.
So, yeah, I guess to me, the motion would be with an understanding that it's not to exceed 100.
I'll make a motion that.
Wait. We've made a motion to reconsider a vote on a motion that's already voted on and on the floor. So the motion was to approve the special event, do not exceed the state orders, and to end the event at sunset. So that's what you would have to be voting on now at this point in time.
So question then, Leanne.
Yep.
How do we have them update the application? Because
you can make a second motion. Until
okay, all right.
Yep.
That's what I would.
Can I weigh in here for?
Yes,
Chief. Just as a suggestion, we do send out, or I send out a approval notice on every event that is held, and I would be memorializing in that memorandum or email to them the parameters that have been discussed here, specifically the number of people and the time that would be noted and what is approved.
That makes sense.
Okay, Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Okay, Vixen.
Yes.
Bavacqua.
No.
Albrecht.
Yes.
Keithley.
Yes.
Peterson.
Yes.
Sage.
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Good luck, Pastor.
Less than 100.
Thank you.
Less than 100. We're counting on you.
Thank you very much. Is there anything else I need to submit, or are we good?
You can be in contact with the police chief. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. City Manager, do you have anything else in miscellaneous?
I don't, but I believe the city attorney has an item under 12C.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney.
Yes, thank you. Does everyone have the First Amendment to the Employment Agreement for City Manager in their packet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. I don't, so that's why I was asking. I don't need a screen share then. So what's before you is, as you know, City Manager Wing, or you may not know, is City Manager Wing's contract is up at the end of October, and so it was for a 2-year term, and this version started November 1, 2018, and had a discussion with Mayor Bixen, and there was a request of me to prepare a contract amendment for the only change to be to remove that end date and have an open-ended end date, which takes it from being a October 31, 2020 end date to have it read and shall continue until either party provides written notice to the other of his desire to terminate the employment relationship. When doing that, I looked at the existing agreement to make sure that there's nothing else that really needed to be changed as a result of that change. And the only one I would suggest is a change to the paragraph 19. Paragraph 19 is the severance and termination pay provision. Right as it stands right now, if City Council terminated the contract of City Manager Wing early, which means before October 31, then he would be entitled to a 6-month severance. payment under the terms of that agreement. With removing the end date, then there really wouldn't be a termination early provision. So I took out the provision in that if City Council chose to terminate employee without cause, then he would be entitled to the same 6-month severance pay under the terms otherwise of the existing agreement. If he resigned or was terminated for cause, then that severance pay would not trigger. So it's actually a pretty simple in its form change. To no other terms are proposed to be changed. I did run it past Labor Council and has her blessing as well. If City Council wishes to move forward with that amendment, unless Mayor Bixson had anything further to say on that instruction that was given.
No, that's it. And I just felt like I should bring this to City Council to consider. This reverts actually back to the way that used to be with city managers, and everything else stays the same. We still have his evaluation. He's still an at-will employee. All we're saying is that there's not an arbitrary end date to his contract. Councilmember Albrecht, you had a comment?
Yeah, while I'm in support of this, and I'll make a motion, I just double checked. I received your email or the memorandum, Attorney Crock. I have the agreement in front of me. In fact, I printed it out but I never saw the amendment in the packet. I don't know if I'm looking at a old packet.
Yeah.
I don't see it in here. It says it's an attachment. So I'm going through paragraph 2 of your analysis, which makes sense. I looked at it against the current agreement, and I understand these because I do these for a living. So while I'm in support of it, maybe I pulled up a wrong packet, but the one I see on the City Council website didn't have your changes in there.
Well, and that was, thank you, Council Member, because that was my question, because I didn't have it in my packet either. So I just screen shared, and hopefully everyone can see the screen share. So this, they're kind of reverse order because I did it chronologically, but paragraph 20, this is when it is effective commencing November 1, 2018, which is what it was currently, because we're just taking that paragraph out and substituting it with the new one. So then it says, and shall continue until either party provides written notice of the other of its intent to terminate the employment agreement. And then back over the change to paragraph 19, the only change in here is to remove the hard or the reference to early termination, because you can't have an early termination of something that doesn't have an end, so a natural end. So other than that, it's the whereas I just went through when the dates of the current agreement, and just what I indicated that the current term is November 1, 2018 through October 31. And then the parties wish to amend the agreement so no specific termination is provided.
Thank you, City Attorney Crock. Based on that, again, I didn't see that, so maybe other people saw that, but thank you for sharing that. Based on that, I would make a motion to proceed with the First Amendment to the employment agreement as presented by City Attorney Crock.
Support.
Okay, so motion by Councilmember Albrecht, support by Councilmember Sage. Discussion on the motion. Councilmember Peterson.
Okay, so, well, I guess I'm concerned as to why this was brought up just a couple months before it actually expires, though. I mean, because that was something that was voted on a couple years ago, and why we would do that, like, to do that at this point in time.
Well, I brought it forward because I thought for council's consideration, because it was getting towards the end of the contract, and I think it seemed like there was support for the city manager, so I brought that forward for council's consideration.
Okay, well, I haven't ever approved any of the contracts, and I don't like the fact that we would be changing something on it that had a term limit that I voted on 2 years ago, right before it's going to be ending in a couple months. I'm not understanding that concept at all of why we would bother doing that. Because he would actually be, that would mean that he's not up for renewal, he'll just have an evaluation then?
Yes, well, he's going to have a personnel evaluation, the yearly one like he would usually have, and everything else in the contract stays the same, except there'll be no more length of the, like a 2-year contract. It'll just be serving at the pleasure of the city council.
Mayor, if I may put a little bit more context. It's not unusual for a fixed term employment agreement to actually start addressing it before it ends, because otherwise, in this case, City Manager Wing, I mean, it would be very difficult for him to continue working without knowing whether he's going to have employment past November 1. So if you wait until, say, October, that wouldn't give city council enough time, very much time to look for a new city manager if it wanted to go that direction, or for Mr. Wing to find new employment if that was the direction of city. So there's no requirement to handle this now, but as for both sides, it's a generally good idea to start considering future before the actual termination.
Councilmember Sage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my question is for the city attorney. So this would bring this agreement back to in line with agreements we had with managers Johnson and Vetrano, correct?
Mr. Vetrano's, yes. I don't recall Johnson's, but Vetrano's was open-ended, yes.
Yeah, City Manager Johnson was open-ended as well. The non-open-ended started with when City Manager Bling was hired. Councilmember Keithley.
Thank you. I'd like to add maybe to Attorney Krotz's point that Manager Blaine Mr. Wing would need to be looking for employment, starting around this time if his contract were to expire. And I work really closely in cities in this region because my work takes me there. And I don't want to make the same mistakes I see other communities making with their city managers. I think there are a couple of communities we can look to right now that have been in the news who have lost their city managers. It's tough to replace them. And I think it's better to preserve what we have and do those evaluations, but to not encourage our manager to be looking for other work.
Further discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Nope.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you. On to general miscellaneous. Mr. Manager, are you finished?
Yes, thank you. And thank you, council.
Yes. I just want to say thank you for the job you've done during this COVID situation that's been difficult for everybody. I appreciate your leadership on this. Madam Clerk.
I do have election info. So to the residents, next Monday, July 20th is the last day to register to vote through Secretary of State or via mail. After that begins the 14-day period up through Election Day, where you then can register to vote at the local clerk's office with proof of residency. Also, and then for council, to give you an update on the absentee, we've been issuing them for 3 weeks. We stand at 2,648 through today. And our permanent AV list has gone from 900 to 2,900.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
So,
it's a lot of door knocking.
I think
it is a lot of door knocking. So And it's going well. I want to address quickly too. Yesterday, there was an article in the Detroit News. Today, I saw an article in the Detroit Free Press. If any council member has concerns about how the election is going here in Rochester, and want to see the process or anything, please reach out to me. I understand that the larger municipalities have thousands more than I do. So they have challenges that I don't have. So I can understand where they would be kind of frustrated with this, but we're doing well. It's a lot. I've been in a few Sundays, but that's why I'm here. So if anyone has any questions, just call me rather than panic or worry.
Thank you.
And I think this election is going to change things forward. I don't think it's ever going to go back, probably. So thank you for your work on that. Mr. City Attorney?
Nothing, thank you.
Chief or Mr. Banda?
All set. All set. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Keithley? Good.
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Councilmember Sage?
Nothing to say, things, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem Bavacqua?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something that came up at Planning Commission. It was the project that it's Dr. Atala's project to change some space that he has from office into residential, and it kind of made me think about an issue that's been on my mind for a little while, and it now seems to be becoming a larger issue. So I wanted to share it with folks. So you got properties that are in the DDA that are residential properties, and throughout the DDA geography, you've got Great Oaks apartments are in there. You've got individual residential homes that are in there. You've got Sunrise, which is in there, which is residential. And now you have Dr. Atala, who's shifting some of his properties to resident, well, at least one, and he's talking about doing another large one. So I've got a concern in that, the spirit and the intent of the TIF is to take taxes and revenue that's brought in via businesses and allow them to re-engage those tax dollars in that specific geography to help grow the business in that area. I think I did like a back of a napkin calculation a little while back, maybe a year and a half ago, and don't hold me to it, but I think I had it at around 16% of the revenue was actually residential. So as we shift more of these properties to residential, you've got a greater and greater amount of revenue that is going to have its tax dollars that should have residential have the residential needs behind them. Like for example, if it's incremental revenue, as I understand it, that doesn't go towards the police department yet. You put more and more people into the DDA, that the police are going to be required to police those residents. Yet there's no revenue going towards it. So that's just an example of the type of concern that I have. And one of the thoughts that I had was maybe we should take a look at adjusting the geography of the DDA to address this issue. And a quick thought was, taking it back up University a little bit and getting Great Oaks out of there as an example. So just food for thought I'd share it with folks, and something to consider. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
Well, no, I was just going to, I didn't think the DDA went as far as Great Oaks though.
It does. It does.
It's like right on the border there, because part of Great Oaks, I mean, that's what doesn't make sense. The Rochester Hills line is there, so.
Part of it does. The part along University is within the DDA.
Yeah, well, that does.
And actually, we could have, not that, I mean, it would take a direction from council, but we could have Anthony pull an analysis to determine exactly how much tax revenue comes from residential locations into the DDA. Not that this needs to be addressed now or anything, but I'm just thinking that it'd be interesting to know, especially with the shift. We've got apartments that are popping up above, above some of these business locations that are residential now. And if Dr. Atala does what he wants to do, that's going to be a lot more residential. So just wanted to put it out there.
Yeah, well, Mr. City Manager, why don't you get us that information if, at your convenience.
Okay, I'll work with Anthony and get that.
Thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
No, I do. Well, yes, I have one thing I would like council to consider having the minutes, as I didn't recall us voting on the closed meeting minutes to reflect that I was not absent from the meeting. Because I don't think it's fair for myself or the constituents out there to think that I was absent from a meeting that I was actually at.
Your Honor, maybe what I could do is reflect above that vote. I mean, the absent it means you were absent from the vote, but maybe prior to that, I could put in a note that due to technical difficulties, Councilperson Peterson could not re-enter the meeting or something to explain that absent mark.
Absolutely. And I noticed, Mr. City Manager, that we did not vote on
We did not.
that was not on the agenda. So we missed that, I think.
So can we bring it to a future meeting?
Yeah. Why don't we bring that to the next meeting, Mr. City Manager?
I'm sorry, what wasn't voted?
We voted on the regular meeting minutes, but we did not vote on the closed sessions.
You don't. You haven't for a very, very, very long time. Closed session minutes. This was a discussion point for me and Mr. Johnson and Mr. Vitrino for a long time. In the Open Meetings Act, the minutes themselves are supposed to be sealed in the clerk's office and only produced if a judge determines that they can be open. So that's not something that's approved by council. So that's something that is a practice that we ceased at the turn of the city managers.
But the minutes were in the thing to show that I was absent.
So that was in the open session though.
Right.
So what you guys did at the last meeting was went out to close session, reconvened in the open. So I'll put in a note there to try to make an explanation.
Thank you. Anything else, Councilmember Peterson?
No.
Councilmember Albrecht.
Just one thing. Over the last week, I've received, I guess, form emails from constituents asking me not to support mandatory, mask usage. I've responded on my position, but I also am going to follow the governor's executive order and support wearing of mask. I will continue to wear a mask in public as I have here. And I'm going to stick with the governor's support of the mask and follow the science in this. It's not a political issue. I'm just going to follow the executive order. And that's been my response to the people who've sent me emails. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Salvia.
Yes. So a question I'd like some input from council and possibly from Chief Schottenheim and the DDA regarding social districts. It's passed as a law at a state level, but I believe there needs to be some local action taken. So, we have in essence used social districts when we do events in the city. So, maybe some discussion at a DDA level with some recommendations back to council would be a thought from my standpoint.
We have a meeting on Wednesday, Nancy. I can take that back.
Okay, that'd be great. And then secondly, it's been on my mind lately, and it's been said by a couple of people tonight, right now is a very hard time for everybody. Everybody is experiencing some sort of loss, whether it be health or opportunities or time. And so, we have an amazing community, amazing people in our city, and people who come to visit our city are amazing. But it's just a reminder to be kind. People may have different views than you on things. Just be kind and be gracious. Some of the store owners and restaurant owners are saying that it's just challenging sometimes, and it's challenging on many levels. So just be kind wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Sage?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to follow up on Councilmember Albrecht's comments there and maybe direct a question back to city administration. How do we plan to communicate the executive order regarding masks on the website?
Mr. City Manager?
Yep, we've actually just received today from the state some additional or new graphics that actually really illustrate well the use of masks and kind of the high risk when you don't have somebody who's infected and somebody else not wearing a mask all the way down. That actually should be posted on the website right on the front page. If it's not already, it will be by the end of this evening.
Thank you.
Very good. Sandy, did you want to say anything?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay, and then Madam Clerk, we have another person on the line. Did they want to say something? Or is that?
The 562 number is Miss Moriaki, Marcy.
Okay, well, there's her name and then there's an.
Yep, then it's her phone number too.
Okay. Marcy, did you want to say anything? No.
No, it's fine. I was just having trouble with my audio,
Okay.
so I had to call in. So I'm good. Thank you,
Thank
Mayor.
you. So I would just like to echo what Councilmember Salvia said. These are difficult times. And I think it's probably incumbent upon all of us as leaders in the community to be nice, to listen. I get a lot of emails that are, fairly strong on one side or another, and I just try to answer them, with my positions, but to be nice and things like that. And these are difficult times. I would just like to say, on a positive note, it seems like when I and Maria and I walk downtown, it seems like the downtown is coming back. And some of the business people are pretty optimistic, and the restaurants are pretty optimistic. So that's good. And hopefully we can continue to grow that. Hopefully the virus doesn't come back. It could, but hopefully it doesn't. So hopefully to see that growth. And again, I just want to emphasize that everybody needs to practice social distancing and keep safe and respect other people's space and things, especially in these difficult times. So that's all I have. So now I think Mr. Manager?
Yep, I was just gonna say that there is a request for a closed session for a periodic personnel evaluation.
Motion to go into closed session.
And then do we plan on coming back?
Yep, so that if there is a decision, yes, then you would come back to open to make a motion if there is one.
Okay, so a motion by Councilmember Albrecht.
Support.
Councilmember Salvia to go into closed session with the intention of coming back into open session. Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you. So you'll go out of this account, you'll go back and then log into the special meeting account.
Got it.
Right. And Jane sent an email with the two links. No. And if you have
See
any
you guys
questions,
shortly.
yep. If you have questions, let Jane or the clerk know.
Okay.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city manager to do the pre-COVID bonus for the DPW.
Okay, so a motion by Councilmember Peterson.
Support.
Support by Councilmember Albrecht. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilmember Albrecht.
Councilmember Peterson said pre-COVID bonus. It's really the COVID-19 bonus. I just wanted to clarify the motion.
Ann, is that are you okay with that? The COVID
Yes.
bonus?
Yeah,
Yes.
just, yeah.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, the roll, please.
Dixon,
Yes.
Bavacqua,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Keithley,
Yes.
Peterson,
Yes.
Sage,
Yes.
Salvia.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. I know it's a late meeting. I appreciate everybody's help and perseverance, and I will see you guys all later.
Thank you.
Have a good
Night.
evening, everybody.
Good
Good night,
night.
everybody.
Night.